10 plus years of the Fed balance sheet going lower left, upper right. When you change the value of money, you're effing with everything. The Fed is Congress's drug dealer.
Trump's bullying power is going to drive the market and the economy into a recession. They talk about the wealth transfer. It's not going to be. That's going to be the price correction.
S&P 500 index lost over 50% in both 2001 to 03 and 07 to 09. 50%, and they're cutting rates the entire time.
She went into a Walmart cart in 2020. It was $70 for those goods back then, and today they're $165.
Why do I rail against the central banks? I do it because they are driving people to extremism with their wealth inequality policies.
I think that if I never buy another stock, I will go to my grave better off. The markets are kayfabe. They don't respond to anything.
Half the country, I think, has been in a depression since 2008 at least. Look at the big banks in this country. How much in fines have they paid over the last 10, 20 years? I mean, you're talking tens of billions of dollars. JP Morgan has pled guilty as a firm to 5 felony counts. But who commits those crimes?
Well, no, Rudy, I think it's me and you are going to steer Dave back on track here.
I'm told.
I'm easy. Dave's a force of nature.
I know.
It's been 2 years since we last caught up, or maybe even 3.
That was the first time we caught up, too. I think we've only done one threesome.
Yeah. And obviously a lot's happened since then, but let's just jump into current topics. And since we have Rudy on the call, maybe we focus on what your perspective is with the squabbling between Trump, Jerome Powell, and the Treasury and the Fed. It seems like we're at a point where the administration just wants to call, not bullshit, but just like, all right, we're going to merge the Fed and the Treasury. We're going to make it happen. There's not going to be any facade that there's independence from the Fed moving forward because we're in such a predicament that we need.
So I'm going to do like Rudy. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm behind the face here. I'm behind the face. I'm a dog. I'm only 2 years old.
There you go. Well, you know,
here, I'll pick you up.
Haven't we had a merger of the Fed and the Treasury? I mean, I posted the other day about this. Sure looks like fiscal dominance to me, and it's a chart of 10 plus years of ZERP, and
so you should be recording, Marty, right?
10, yeah, he's recording.
We are recording. Yeah. We've been recording, Dave.
And 10. Shit, I would have put my pants on. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, this is gonna be interesting. At 10 plus years of the Fed balance sheet, going lower left, upper right. So, Powell likes to say things like, we don't have, when someone asks him a question about, fiscal matters, he says, that's not our remit. We don't affect fiscal matters. Well, you don't affect fiscal matters other than monetizing, at the peak $9 trillion worth of bonds. I mean, he basically enabled Congress to be completely profligate and, forever. And they bought the mortgage-backed securities, which to me is not only probably illegal, not that that matters, but it totally screwed up the housing market when houses were already going up 20% year over year. So, yeah, I think they've already merged. They can pretend. I mean, there's people, several people have said the quip that the job of the Fed is to make the Treasury look solvent, and that's what they've been trying to do all these years, and I'm sure it's only going to get worse. And no one's been as big a critic of Powell as me then, but whoever's going to replace him is going to be much worse, probably worse. So and Powell went insane during COVID and before, but lately he finally, after talking about it for 15 years or more, they finally normalized rates. These are normal rates we have right now. They are not abnormal rates. I mean, the average Fed funds rate, I just looked the other day. The average 10-year yield. I mean, we're at historic averages. It's around 5%.
This is a 100-year average.
I think the data, like some of them go back to 1962. So you're talking 60 years. So I mean, someone the other day. In fact, I was working on my Substack, and somebody I was listening to some podcast, and the guy made a comment, and he's talking about the long-term 10-year yield, and he used, so for the past 20 years it's around 3%, which is actually correct. It's actually, I looked it up since August 2005. August 2005, the average 10-year yield is 2.91, and the median is 2.75. But if you go back to when the Fed data starts, which is 1962, the average 10-year yield is 5.83. and the median is 5.5.
I was going to say 3% sounded way too low to me.
Yeah, I mean, but this guy considers, if you consider the last 20 years to be long-term history, that was a period of when every central bank on earth went insane. And what's the 10-year yield right now? 4.28. So we're still well below historic averages. Anyway, that's all. Don't get me started.
No, and that's like, I've been saying this for the last few months when everybody, it's funny because you see it in the Bitcoin space. You particularly see it in like Silicon Valley tech. They're like, Trump's right to be berating too late, Powell. He needs to lower rates. It's like, well, inflation isn't really solved. Like real inflation's not solved. And to your point, Rudy, like, shouldn't we want rates to be above the zero bound to actually add some opportunity cost into the markets and make people weigh decisions? Like, and we have stock markets at all-time highs. Obviously, the last jobs report, the revisions came in a bit lower, but who can really depend on that data? Like, I think the goal should be to hold rates as high as possible for long as possible. And obviously, the fiscal side of things, can't let that happen. And to the point about, I agree, the Fed and the Treasury have essentially been merged for years now, but they're just completely not even going to pretend.
Well, that is in the Constitution. I mean, and people say, wait a minute, you want Congress to be setting monetary policy? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it would be horrible. I completely agree, but at least they'd be somewhat accountable. There's no accountability now at any level in anything, really. But I mean, there's all the people that 5 years ago on the Fed, every single one of them said, we want higher inflation. We want inflation over 2% for a long time. And then they got it. It's one of the only things they actually got right. And I mean, at least from what they predicted. And then what has that done? It's house prices. No one can afford a house anymore. And people are really hurting from this inflation. And they can pretend all day long. Trump says there's no inflation. As I joked that all the Republicans now say there's no inflation, and all the Democrats say that the only inflation comes from tariffs. Well, they actually specifically stated in 2020 that Fed wanted to raise inflation above 2%. And 2% is a number they made up to begin with. There is no mandate for 2%. They made it up. Their mandate is stable prices. And nobody brings this up because nobody in Congress, the Fed is Congress's drug dealer. So there's very few people in Congress that want a responsible Fed. The Fed has basically acted as an agent of congressional profligacy since 2008 at least. That coup d'etat that happened, So, and then we had another one in 2020, a big transfer of wealth upwards, and it's been going on ever since.
So, I posted the other day that I'm probably the only guy on Twitter who thinks they ought to raise the rates, and Jerome Powell the other day said that when asked about housing, he said, "Well, they just haven't built enough houses." And I thought about that for a second. I thought, okay, so let me see if I got this right. The people who are not living in houses are living on the street. And the answer is no. And they go, so they're living in apartments. And the answer is yes. And therefore we have plenty of housing. It's just that the rents in the houses are just expensive as hell. It just and that stems from the fact that they let BlackRock and Barry Sternlicht and these guys borrow money at 0.15% and buy up all the goddamn houses.
And now we have the divergence between the number of sellers and buyers on the market right now higher than it's ever been, with sellers way out.
It's collapsing. I think Darth Powell's got this one under control, right? He posts as many posts about the housing market being in total chaos as Rudy posts about the Fed being full of shit, which is it's astronomical numbers for both of those two postings, but they're correct. So Powell's posting real estate, data every day, over and over on Twitter, and the real estate market's is going south right now, and they're just not admitting it or something. I don't know.
Sorry, I jumped off for a second there. I'm back. So if I missed anything, I'm sorry.
No, we're just talking about housing. But isn't that a bad thing that the housing market's going down? Like, obviously it's way overinflated.
No, it's got to go down.
I think it's a great thing. I think it's wonderful. Yeah. Melody Wright, just listened to her last night, and she said, the median household income is $80,000. And so she said that, and she knows from looking at, she's in the business of mortgages. She said that means you can afford a house maybe comfortably $250,000 to $300,000. And the what's the median price? I don't know. I looked it up earlier. Median sales price.
It's like 436.
Right. Oh, well over four.
That's so variable.
Well, I know. And if they drop rates, but here's the thing. If people say, well, you own a home and you got a 3% mortgage. That's great. Well, look at your property taxes. Look at your mortgage. Look at your insurance, house insurance. Look at the cost of a new roof. You know what I mean? Everything's doubling. So yeah, your house, I mean, you're paying, 3% mortgage is a gift. I wish I had taken money at 2.75%. But
you can make a counter argument. That is, so the price times the, as a function of the interest rate, you're going to pay as much as you can. I'd rather buy a dirt cheap house at high rates because you can fix that.
Absolutely. Yeah. My first houses were over 10%, and I know people that had like 18% mortgages, but the houses cost, 1/10 as much.
That's right. So I saw a stat. I've now seen it 3 different places, and one was a graphic, which was helpful because it means they looked at it, that said it happens to start in 81, which is the year I bought my first house, and I had a 16% mortgage, and the average first-time home buyer in 1981 was 32 years old. It's now 54.
Yeah, disgusting.
At 54, you're supposed to be thinking about selling your house and moving into an old folks' home at that point, right? That's just insanity.
Yeah, and I feel, as a millennial, just still renting consciously because I haven't found like the forever house that I want to raise the family in yet at a price that makes sense for me.
How many kids you got now, Marty? How many kids you got now?
I got my 3rd coming next month.
Jesus, did your mother not have a chat with you about how that happens? Oh, by the way, do you notice who won the national title in lacrosse this year?
Yeah, Cornell. Charlie Kirst. Congratulations. He's a beast.
Oh, finally. Okay. Never mind. Mr. Tangent, just a blind nut found a squirrel.
Well, that was a great game. They tooled Maryland. It was an absolute whooping. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
No, I would love to get your perspectives on this because I'm sure you've seen it. There's like this massive sort of social positioning, like millennials, Gen Z, Gen X even versus the boomers. And there's a ton of people that are sort of pissed at the boomers because they're refusing to sell their houses and don't plan on passing down their wealth. And I think that's one of the
fiction. That's fiction.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I'm trying to pass. I can't sell my house until I have a refrigerator box to live in or something, right? So I have to live in my house. I'm not going to sell my house, and the problem is that who am I going to sell it to? The next generation doesn't have any money.
Right, it's too expensive.
It's too expensive. So there's going to be. They talk about the wealth transfer. It's not going to be. That's going to be the price correction.
Right. Well, the houses I've seen that are very expensive, that the person passes away. And like several kids inherit it, or one kid, they sell the houses.
They got to sell it.
The kid, they got to sell it, and that's what happens. So they're coming on the market as the demographics gets older, more people die off. Another thing Melody was talking about, she was doing it with Palisades Gold radio podcast, which is good. But where are you supposed to go, Dave?
Tom Broderick.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great, right? He's a sort of a redneck blue collar type guy too. He's grounded, it's the wealth is not going to transfer. It's going to reprice, in my opinion. I said that. I said if you think you're going to get the boomers are going to transfer their wealth without it getting repriced, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that happened. First of all, a lot of society's ills today are related to things just costing too damn much, and yet right. the people who advocate for that and create that situation, Congress and the Federal Reserve, it's like they're given a free pass on it. People need to be angry at the right people, and it's the Federal Reserve and your profligate Congress that's been, and presidents, of course, that have caused your cost of living to double. I think in the last so many years. The CPI is a joke. I always explain that many times. It's not intended to tell you the cost of living. It's intended to keep COLA benefits low.
What do you think if you had to take a wild guess at the real rate of inflation right now, Rudy? What would you guess?
Well, my biggest expenses are going up double digits. So health insurance, house insurance, car insurance went up 41% a couple years ago. That's with no accidents or anything. I mean, and then to have them say, oh, well, and then have the pundits on TV talking about this month inflation came in at 2.7%, as, it was estimated to be 2.8. I'm like, you can imagine. I'm just like, look, half the times I tweet about it. It's total BS, and I think everyone knows that. And people are a little more vocal about it now, but I think a lot of people don't realize where it's coming from. And lately the Democrats, they've been advocating inflationary policies forever, the Brainards of the world and the Yellens. And then when tariffs come up, which I think are inflationary, they freak out suddenly about inflation. It's a total political game. If Trump was violently opposed to tariffs, they'd be in favor of them. It's just it's so stupid.
You can flip the tariff argument. Now, this is only in theory,
I understand.
not in practice.
Yeah.
You can make the argument that the tariff is a tax, and that if it alleviated tax elsewhere. See, one of the beauties of using tariff as a tax, let's say there's $1 trillion worth of tariff tax. Some percentage of that will be swallowed by importers, some percentage of it will be swallowed by the exporters sending it here, and some percentage will be swallowed by the consumer. If that got translated into $1 trillion tax deduction on your house or something, that would be a net win.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that.
Yeah, they're not going to do it.
That's a theoretical construct.
Yeah.
Well, Logan, pull up the tweet because I think this is the real rate of inflation since 2020. I'm sure you guys saw this, but this was going around Facebook, shared on X. The woman who was like wondering why the 12-pack of drinks she's been buying is more expensive, and then she went into her Walmart cart and saw a package of 30 goods she bought in 2020 was $70 for those goods back then. Then she went and re-added them to their cart. And today they're $165. That's like 135.6x inflation.
I can verify the 12-pack. The prices on the 12-pack, I don't even. It's you have these 89-cent the big bottles of like Coke or something. The big plastic bottle. Those were 89 cents probably 6 years ago, and they're now on sale for $2.50. Each. So
we used to buy 10-cent Cokes when we were a kid, Rudy.
Well, I know, and me. I'm inflationism. I mean, look at my nom de guerre on Twitter. It's meant to be a warning, not an encouragement. But everything is affected by when you change the value of money, you're effing with everything. You know what I mean? And a lot of I have tons of quotes from famous people, smart people talking about this, but we don't have smart people running things.
So many decades ago, I sent an email out, and I said when I was 13 years old, I carried 2 golf bags. It takes 4 hours, and I would be paid $10. That's $2.50 an hour. I happen to remember just by chance because we were at a pizza place. My brother almost got in a fight there, and so it was kind of a memorable night. We bought an extra large pizza, thrown in the air by an Italian, not a Domino's guy, right? An extra large plain pizza for $2. So as a 13-year-old, I was paid 1 1/4 pizzas per hour. That is a purchasing power that is not imaginable today unless you're doing tricks behind Wendy's dumpster, right? That I actually sent to Elizabeth Warren, and she put it on her blog. And a
long time ago.
Back before she was a complete douchebag, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. She did. There's a gold mine of information in the FCIC, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission. Interviews that they did, and she did one, and I've posted on it, and she actually talks about the role that inflation had in forcing everybody to get into debt back in the 80s when they got rid of the usury laws and all that. And she makes a lot of sense, and And of course, I think she's since gone insane. But there was a time.
Do you think there was a lurking demon in there, or do you think it really did just scorch her?
Well, I think it's what you said, Dave, that she took to politics way too easily. I think she had a character flaw, and politics brought it out.
Right.
The best example that I love to use, and I've done this for years, and it keeps going up, is the minimum wage back in the, I think, 65, 64, 63 was buck and a quarter, or five silver dollars, and $5 silver are today worth almost $35. So it's, as I like to say, it's
wait a minute, 5 quarters.
What'd I say? 5 quarters. Sorry, 5 quarters, which is $1.25. We're getting
our economic wisdom from a guy who does math like that, Marty.
Well, no, anyway, silver quarters. Just, I'm not very smart. $35. So the minimum wage would be like $35. I like to say the silver didn't change, the money, the currency did. So
yeah,
there you go.
Well, Dave, using your hourly wage, when I was 13, I worked at a hot dog stand down here. I made $8 an hour, and actually like 13 to 16, I made 8. I think I worked my way up to $10 an hour by the time I was 15. That's when the recession, that was like 2008. Recession hit. The pizza shop down here had a recession special where you could buy a whole pizza for $15. So I was making like less than
a pizza.
Yeah, 2/3 of a pizza in a recession at minimum wage.
And it's, if you go back and you look at one time I tried to do this manually. I tried to beat Boskin at his own game, and I went and got a 1967 Sears Roebuck catalog out of the archive of our library. And I started flipping through it. And the problem is there is a need to hedonically adjust. So when you look, you go, that's just not the same lawn tractor. That's just, and I finally gave up because it seemed just too anecdotal. But there was a time when I was a kid where you'd go to the gas station, there'd be 3 guys servicing your car. And somehow we created wealth so efficiently that some guy like Al Bundy on Married with Children could work in some schlupp of a job and come home and feed his family, and that's just not possible now. There was a statement the other day that said 62% of, this is stunning actually, this is not a statement about economics in my opinion, 62% of people with $300,000 a year salary are suffering from credit card problems.
Yeah,
$300,000 salary, 62%. Now, I don't live in San Francisco, so that might be the problem.
Sup, freaks? This rip of TFTC was brought to you by our good friends at Bitkey. Bitkey makes Bitcoin easy to use and hard to lose. It is a hardware wallet that natively embeds into a 2 or 3 multi-sig. You have one key on the hardware wallet, one key on your mobile device, and Block stores a key in the cloud for you. This is an incredible hardware device for your friends and family, or maybe yourself, who have Bitcoin on exchanges and have for a long time, but haven't taken the step to self-custody because they're worried about the complications of setting up a private public key pair, securing that seed phrase, setting up a PIN, setting up a passphrase. Again, Bitkey makes it easy to use, hard to lose. It's the easiest 0 to 1 step, your first step to self-custody. If you have friends and family on the exchanges who haven't moved it off, tell them to pick up a Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world, use the key TFTC 20 at checkout for 20% off your order. That's bitkey.world, code TFTC 20. Sup, freaks? Guess what? We launched a browser extension. It's called Opportunity Cost, and it helps you see the true cost of everything in Bitcoin, convert prices to Bitcoin as you browse the web. Opportunity Cost automatically displays fiat prices in Bitcoin or sats, helping you think in a Bitcoin standard. It works on Amazon, Zillow, X, your bank account, QuickBooks. You can convert everything to Bitcoin. It's really cool. It's also 100% open source, MIT license. We don't collect any data. All of the conversions happen in your browser on your local device. It's a great way to recalibrate your life and begin thinking in sats. Go check it out at opportunitycost.app. That's opportunitycost.app.
Another thing is that financial education in this country is non-existent, and people are and I think the consumer finance industry loves it that way. I mean, there's a lot of people that are not smart with money, that are otherwise intelligent people. I've seen it. I've seen guys that make, this is many years ago, a guy was making probably $80,000 a year, and he had $80,000 in credit card debt. And his friend told me this, and I said to him, "This is a very smart, software engineer guy." And I was trying to explain, you're paying 25% a year on 80 grand. What is? He goes, "No, I just make the minimum payment." I go, "If you make the minimum payment, you're never going to pay off. It's just going to grow." It did not click to this guy. It's just like maybe he was on the spectrum or something. He just didn't get that this was a horrible financial decision he was making. And I see that every day, and people, complaining about prices. And prices, my point is prices are ridiculous. And the inflation is a major problem for 90% of America. But, the kids can go through high school without knowing what a checkbook is, without knowing how credit works, without knowing how contracts work. The best course I took in junior college was business law. And, because it taught you about contracts and stuff. Because my parents never taught me that. They didn't know anything about that. They never owned stocks or anything. And so, unless you look on your own now as a young person, you don't know. You have no idea. So how finance works. And then you go to college and you get 15 credit card, come-ons in the mail. And so I don't want to. I think it's a predatory system. I mean. Steve Eisman, talks about it in The Big Short, or is quoted in The Big Short about it. It's a industry designed to screw, poor people mostly. Elizabeth Warren pointed out, and I'll repost this from her FCIC testimony, that they learned that they could make more money by loaning to people with bad credit than people with good credit, and because of all the fees and the rates and all that, and they've been screwing people ever since. I think it's like loan sharks. It's one step. They don't break your knees anymore, but they can ruin your life.
Well, and it's extending further and further out. I'm sure you guys saw it a few months ago when I forget, it was like a firm or one of the sort of short-term loan companies had a partnership with DoorDash to short-term finance burrito deliveries. It's just like they're having to go.
Yeah. Like private credit market. And that's estimated. What Melody puts out at 4 trillion, maybe, or something. Yeah, and that's going to blow up completely.
Well, and that was the question I had when they did that. It was like, because typically they were like layaway, bigger ticket items, just financing that, which sort of made sense. But like going down to literally payday lending for burrito deliveries, it's like, was that a sign that their bigger ticket items weren't getting paid back and they had to move downstream to these smaller ticket items to try to make up that hole?
I ordered 2 pounds of ground coffee from the local coffee shop, and they offered me to make it payments in 4 payments.
Yeah.
And I had the advantage of actually being raised by a guy who ran a construction company. And he designed his own pension plan. He designed his own health plan. He negotiated with union contract. He was the president of New York State Builders Exchange. So we would sit around the kitchen table and talk about economics. We would talk about economics at the street level, though. This was not some, differential equation bullshit. This is I'd make some stupid statement when I'm 8 years old, something like, people should all be paid the same. And he would then explain to me why that's really stupid and that he should do a paternity test on me, right? That sort of thing. But by the end, you get out of high school and you can't possibly have missed the key messages sitting around that kitchen table.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't have that.
I know.
And mine was entirely self-taught. I don't know why I was drawn to be interested in all this things financial, but I just was, because I didn't get it from home.
Well, I think another thing that's happening, I think, like, kids don't really, like, I noticed that I vacation at the shore, and when I grew up down here, like, I started selling papers when I was 12 on the beach, and I worked at the hot dog stand until I found an internship in college. I worked at the hot dog stand my first 2 years in college, but I feel like kids don't work that much anymore. Like, they don't start young. And I had those lessons of, I got paid out in cash every day. It was actually a terrible way to get introduced to money as like a 13-year-old getting $50 a day, go buy a bunch of candy. But over time, sort of learned.
Well, I used to be able to sell newspaper for 50 cents a pound. They'd recycle it. And there was actually a market for it. So there was this place in downtown Syracuse, you could drive a station wagon full of newspapers. They'd pay 50 cents a pound for them. And I would literally take a wagon and walk down the street. I'm going to guesstimate, based on I know how far I got, maybe 2 miles down the street, knocking on doors saying, do you have any old newspapers? And then I'd haul this wagon back full of newspapers, weighing way more than me. And I'd put it in the back of the garage, and then I'd get mom or dad to take me to the recycling place, and I'd get, a couple of bucks.
Yeah. I can relate, Marty, and I started delivering papers, the throwaway papers, the little ad papers, probably 6th grade, 7th grade. And I never took a penny from my parents after that, ever, because first of all, they didn't have it. And I always was making money, a short order cook or working at a, liquor store, grocery store, etc. So and a lot of my friends were like that too. At the worst, you got a job at 15 when you could get a work permit,
right.
Back then. And then the other, so it's just very different now. We're very tended to be, these sort of latchkey kids who were never home. The other thing I find interesting that I've seen is that we got our driver's licenses the second we were able to get your learner's permit, get your driver's license. I think I see kids now that are I'm aware of kids now that they tend to wait longer. I hear it from their parents. They may be in their 18, 19, 20 and they don't have a driver's license, which I can't relate to. And this is in an area that's not like New York City where you can take the subway or take a you could walk to everything. So I don't know. Maybe it's because kids are now taking Uber. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is the Jonathan Haidt books, which I think I've read every one of them, really tells a horror story of the kids being highly damaged by the digital world. So, you step on an elevator, right? And in the olden days, you had to figure out how to cope with the fact that there were other people there and you had to talk to them and, or you had to stare at your shoes or you had to do something. And now you step on the elevator and everyone's staring at their phone.
Right.
And I think they have lost social skills. And I realized this year, the kids in my class, it was a sophomore level class, they were all sweet kids, but they all had the personality of the shy kid in the class. Mm. There were no gregarious kids who'd crack wisecracks, and trust me, I imagine you can agree with this. I love wisecracks in class, right?
That would be me. Yeah,
that's right. That would be me. I mean, I one time remember in a class of 500 where the guy did the math on how many sperm cells you put out per shot and how many you were given in an anthro course. And he did the math wrong. And he lost 3 decimal points. And I raised my hand and I said, Professor, according to your math, you get 8 shots at having a children. And I'd say most of us used them up before middle school was over.
Well, yeah. Well, fortunately,
I want kids like that. I want kids like that in my classroom.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And some chick in my, one point said, some guy made reference to salty semen. I don't remember why. And some girl said, well, why does it taste that salty? And I'm going, you want to go out tonight?
You can edit that part out, Marty. In a little
bit. We don't need to. Over 10,000 investors downloaded the original How to Position for the Bitcoin Boom when Bitcoin was just 27K, and it called for 120K plus. That target's now hit. So what's next? Tur de Meester is back with the 2025 edition, refreshed for the mid-cycle moment, packed with new data, new insights, and Tur's latest price outlook. Plus, you'll get exclusive access to Charting Our Way Through Chaos, Tur's new 30-minute Q3 2025 presentation explaining why this bull run might be only just beginning and what forces could push it to the next level. Read the first ever mid-cycle report from Adamant Research at unchained.com/TFTC. That's unchained.com/TFTC. And also, if you're using Unchained, you can use the code TFTC for $50 off any of their services. Go check it out.
But I will say this, because there's a lot of young people bashing, just like there's a lot of boomer bashing, which I think is I dislike both.
Neither's appropriate.
Neither's appropriate. There's good and bad in every group. It's not. I mean, it's not the young kids. I don't even know what these different groups are. I don't fall into that generational group thing. But it's not the young people that got us into 37 trillion in debt, or over 200, I guess, when you count the the future liabilities. It's not them it's not the young people that got us into all these endless wars and are still trying to get us into wars. It's not the young people. It's the people that are, Trump's age and Biden's age and Clinton's age and all that, so.
But it's not even the people either. It's a system. Right? Well, it's just a bunch of psychopaths who've got control of the system.
That's the only thing that kind of explains everything that's gone on is exactly what you just said. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, let's dive into this. Like the system, the psychopaths in control. Going back to what we started the conversation with, like the Fed, Powell's getting bullied to lower rates, but real inflation doesn't seem to be controlled. You have tech.
Even using their CPI, it's been above their quote target for over 4 years.
Yeah.
So why are we talking about cutting rates? Now you could get into the whole debate of does cutting rates raise inflation, blah blah blah. But why are we even talking about it if the theory is that higher rates stamp down inflation?
I have another theory. I think Trump's bullying Powell so that Powell can't cave, so that it's going to drive the market and the economy into a recession, and then Trump can say that's Powell's fault. I told you.
Yes, he's got Powell for a while longer to blame if something goes wrong, and even after Powell leaves, he'll be blamed, if something goes wrong, that he waited too long or something. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable theory. Trump probably loves having Powell there to bash because that's just how this guy operates.
They might have even talked, for all I know, right?
Yeah,
because Powell probably, if Powell's got a half a brain, then Powell might know he shouldn't lower rates. And it reminds me of Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump getting in a fight in the first debate.
2016.
Right. And I'm going, there's no way that just broke out like that. Those two planned that.
Yeah.
The Rezzy O'Donnell joke.
Yeah.
I only ever called Rezzy O'Donnell.
These things are being teed up for us. See, this is
everything is what? What is it? K-fob? How do you pronounce it?
Kayfabe. Hegelian dialectic. Well, that's that's like why it's perplexing too, particularly like lower rates. Like you look at tech forward PE multiples, they're at all-time highs at like 27.
Right.
It's clear that they're trying to position this administration, AI and broader crypto, which is all bullshit, as like, hey, we're about to have like insane growth. Yeah. And I think that's the question a lot of people have is it actually there? And if you look at the headlines from this morning, you had Meta go tap PIMCO for a debt deal so that they can build these data centers, which would signal that the investment they put in already isn't really paying back and need to take more risk.
Is how long, when we do a renovation of a floor in the chem building because it's 40 years old and, it's time to, take it down to the studs and rebuild it takes 2 years. So when Tim Cook says, we're going to put $600 billion into whatever, by the time he has to stick a shovel in the ground, Trump's going to be a lame duck.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, he can pretend like he's going to do shit. They can even design the data center knowing that it'll be built in South Korea.
Yeah. Dave, we're getting word from Logan that your dog is snoring into the mic.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's the part I can't hear. I can't hear that.
I just looked. I was wondering when someone was going to say something. You got on me last time for clicking my pen, Dave. So I'm gonna anyway.
If you're wearing headphones, you do not realize what the background noise is. I tend to tap.
I hear you. I just looked up Fartcoin's market cap, quote unquote market cap. It's $1 billion. So is policy restrictive? I don't know. There's a million examples of this. I mean, what's Trump Coin's market cap?
That's probably tens of billions.
Why do you think?
And now you can have it in an IRA,
along with your private equity. That's a scary one. That's a terrifying story. Is that actually going to happen, or is it being discussed?
I think
he was supposed to sign it yesterday. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's
is that
official.
Right? That imminent?
Yeah.
That is the bell being rung.
Why do you say that?
Well, because private equity is full of dog shit that's not worth anything, and now they're putting it into 401ks.
Yeah, it's the bag. They're going to be. It's the exit. What do you call it? Exit liquidity for the billionaires.
Distribution.
Yeah, they're going to give it to Ma and Pa Kettle, and in their IRAs, because some salesman will tell them, oh, this is great. This is what all the rich people are in. And of course, the rich people are, I've posted a ton on private equity. I think private equity getting, like inflation is a cancer on America. The whole business plan and the design and the way it works is evil. And, Gretchen Morgensen's great on that. And there's been some other people.
And funds of funds, right? So if you got a private equity guy who's buying another private equity guy, that you got the 220s hitting you squared.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's all about fees. Crushed. Well, we got to keep Steve Schwartzman. He's got to have a higher net worth every year, or we're doing something wrong, right? So, it's criminal. The Trump administration. Someone posted today that it's a complete. I forget the word. I don't know.
Criminal.
Well, yeah, but just it's a slap in the face to his base of supporters, of which I was not one. And of course, I always have to then say, and I'm glad Kamala lost. Okay, so there you go. But his administration
that's the problem.
It's just been shocking. Shockingly, but not surprisingly bad.
My colleagues had a certain clarity after the election because I'd got an earful about anything but Trump, right?
Right.
And they seemed to realize that they'd been duped by their own party. And they seem to recognize that they shouldn't be mad at Trump. They should be mad at their party for putting up. They had so many candidates they could have turned to, including unknown people like a Jimmy Carter who shows up out of nowhere. But they could have. Are you telling me that Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy couldn't have won a national election as a ticket? No,
not as a Democrat. They would not. They wouldn't. The party would never allow that. They wouldn't allow that.
No, but they had them. They had them. They were right.
There's
at their
a fantastic interview with a lady named Lindy Lee that's on the Sean Ryan show. She was a guest, and she's a big Democratic gazillionaire donor, and she kind of broke off with the party on that. And they said that everybody. That's fantastic. I'll repost some of my clips I made from it, but she talks about how their internal polling, they didn't think that there was anybody who could beat Biden or who was better than Biden. In other words, so they went with Kamala, even though she is very clear. She goes, they didn't hate her. They just thought so little of her, is the way she phrased it. But there's no way that their base is going to let them get rid of Kamala Harris, who looks the exact opposite of Joe Biden, which is why she's vice president, right? So they went with her. And it's almost like, I don't know, a kamikaze sort of mission, because it doesn't sound like anybody in the Democratic Party really thought she could win. So I don't understand that, but I highly recommend, someone who is on the inside talk about what went on with the Democratic Party. And there's an interesting question Ryan asked her. He says, hey, why are the Democrats so panicked about Trump? Are they worried about the Epstein list coming out, or the Epstein files? And Lindy Lee blurts out, they think he's on the list. So, see, a lot of people are like, well, if the Democrats had this, why didn't they release it? And I think that they're misunderstanding who has the information. It's not Joe Biden and the Democratic Party or the GOP that has this information. And if anybody should have it, it's the GOP, because Trump was president in 2019 when the second time Epstein was arrested. So it's this stuff is held, I believe, by intelligence agencies. And in fact, even after the FBI raided his New York mansion, while they were waiting on something, and again, I have posts on all of this, their evidence was stolen out of the safe. And I joked that, well, the evidence probably belonged to intelligence. I mean, so it's not like, and as another thing I point out is intelligence doesn't want to punish these guys for whatever they did nefarious. They want to control them. They want to be able to call up Dave, or Your Honor, some judge. Hey, you got this case coming up. We'd really like you to rule this way on it. Or, we'd really hate to have that, video that came out. And, Trump loves to say, I was never on the island. He was in the mansion countless times. I mean, I posted stories 5 or 6 years ago about early 2000 or 2000 stories of Trump and other very famous, very wealthy men in Epstein's mansion, which was wired floor to ceiling with cameras. I mean, the article that I posted even said, the Secret Service would have appreciated the numerous security cameras that Epstein had. It was so blatant that they mentioned it. And by the way, it wasn't just Clinton there. It was also Sergey Brin was there at this particular dinner.
Yeah.
A Bill Clinton aide, an unnamed Bill Clinton aide, some former British Parliament member. I mean, it's, when you say I didn't go to the island, that means nothing. That probably means you weren't extremely, bad in that area. But Larry Summers went. Bill Clinton went many times. And I'm completely bipartisan on this. I'm like, round them all up. I don't care what D or R is after their name, and actually investigate them. There's hundreds of known victims because there's a Epstein Victims Compensation Fund, which is run by David Boies, and Nick Bryant has some comments on him. But
Bryant does not like David Boies.
No, and I like Bryant. Bryant's great, but there's hundreds, but they have to sign an NDA. And so once they get the money, and these, as Carl Denninger, who had a great rant that I posted the other day, said, these are the ones that haven't killed themselves yet or something, because they targeted broken, poor girls generally. A lot of them Eastern European, a lot of them just bad parents, troubled homes, and he was a total predator. And you know what? Let's say, I always say, at best, Trump, by his own admission, partied with this guy for 15 years. By his own admission. There's no way you party with Jeff Epstein for 15 years and don't know exactly what he's into. There's no way, because everybody mentions the young girls, everybody. And so I think at best, Trump, he had no problem with hanging out with a serial, pedophile. Or give it the name, whatever the file is when you like them, 13 or 12,
Yeah, right, pederast or...
Well, there's a term for those different age groups, but it's all illegal regardless of what Alan Dershowitz wants to change, So, and it's a who's it's a who's who of America's royalty, of political royalty and business. I made a joke that they can't arrest anybody involved in the Epstein scandal because that would destroy the private equity business because there's so many private equity guys that were tied up into him. I mean, look at Apollo.
So when Patel and Bongino really looked like he believed that he would spill his guts. Yeah. Then all of a sudden they look like POWs blinking SOSs with their eyes. And
it has to be something big, Dave. Has to be something really big. Right. Has to be huge. And I keep going back to Cindy McCain, who was married to one of the most powerful people on earth.
Said we all knew.
We all knew what he was doing. But this is an exact quote. There was no one. She said, we all knew what he was doing. But there was no one who would go after him. For some reason, they were afraid of him. She was in a position where she was supposed to be going after him. Well, and she's running a foundation that supposedly fights human trafficking. And she said this. She said, yeah, we knew what he was doing. And no one has ever questioned her about this. No one in public. And she blocked me. But where's our press? Our press is like anything now. It's just horrible, and no one's asked her about that. And no one's tried to, no one's asked, hey, Alex Costa, who told you, or what did you mean when you say he belongs to intelligence? And now, guess who's on? Okay, Greg Kelly. I think he's on Newsmax. I don't watch Newsmax. I don't know Greg Kelly, but I saw a post of his where he says that, turns out that Ghislaine could be innocent, and he works for Newsmax. Guess who just got on the board, like within the past month on Newsmax? Is on their board, Alex Acosta. So you can't make this stuff up. The coincidences in this whole story are beyond your imagination. I mean, they're beyond credible that there could be that many coincidences.
Remember the leaked footage of the CBS woman reporter who said we had him dead to rights?
Yes, yes. We had it. They killed the story. Yeah, they killed the story. And Vicky Ward said the same thing, that they left out parts of her story she wanted to publish. Well, nice of her to sit on this for 15 years when she could have been helping future victims. I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of victims that, the FBI has known about Epstein since the 90s. Yeah. They're either complicit, and he was an informant. He was an informant.
No, these raids, though, a great case study is Diddy, right? So what was the Diddy story about, right? So Diddy, I think the connection between Diddy and the rest of these guys is strong enough that you can say that he was probably the rapper / Hollywood wing of the Pervo party, right? And so the question is, what was that about? Well, I think what it was about is the first shot across the bow was a civil case against Diddy. And I think the deep state guys said, holy shit, we got to keep that shit from getting out during discovery. And so then they charged Diddy. scooped up all the tape, scooped up all the data, scooped up everything, made a whole hell of a lot of noise, and then accused him of essentially nothing.
Right.
They could have put him away for 20 years based on what he did to Justin Bieber alone, right?
Yeah.
Justin Bieber.
Well, Nick Bryant says that case was rigged from the beginning, with the prosecutor being the same as the Ghislaine trial, which which was Comey's daughter. Right.
And she.
It's also blatant too. Like it's time and time. Like, and it doesn't seem like that's the thing. Particularly with Trump and Epstein, like they had everybody go out with the binders, holding them up, like, look, we're doing something.
That was clownish.
But even worse was when he came out and said it's a hoax. Mm-hmm. There's some idiots that are my former supporters that are stupidly buying this Democratic hoax. I mean, that was a whole step further than just the binders, because I figured they would do that type of shit.
To me, the low point of the whole thing was, and I think this is because she's a moron, but when Bondi was asked about the tapes, and she said, it's just child pornography, you're not going to get them.
Who's in it?
It's like, Bondi said that.
No, I know, but I mean, is it just by themselves, or there's clearly
So blur out the kids and let's see the heads of the of the adults.
Well, I don't even expect that. Do an investigation. Do an actual investigation.
Hand the tapes over to Schellenberger and Taibbi and say, you don't get to publish the pictures, you can write about it, right?
Well, why don't you start pulling in these? Actually, there's tons of depositions about who did what to who. So why don't you start pulling in some of these private equity hedge fund guys, or Donald Trump, or Bill Clinton, and you put them in a room and you shine a light on them and you say, we have this evidence and this evidence and this evidence. And I guarantee you, as Nick Bryant has pointed out too, some of these people are gonna turn and rat, and they've never done that. They do that in every case, in the history of the FBI, but they don't do it here. They don't want to know the truth. I think they know what's going on, which is I believe it's an intelligence operation that involved both the CIA and the Mossad. I mean, I don't think that's outrageous. Now, I mean, I joke that I love to see stuff that I was posting 6 years ago suddenly mainstreamed on Twitter, about this case. But this case is like slapping you in the face, and no one with any power, subpoena power, legal power, cares. So
the question I like to ask is, when was the last time someone who was either wealthy or powerful went to prison for anything? For anything. Right.
Ken Lay was sentenced to prison and was going to go. He was Bush's biggest donor. Great, very close with George W. Bush, and I'm a big critic of George W. Bush, but Ken Lay was going to.
But he had become worthless, though.
Well, he died awaiting before he went to prison.
The whole system collapsed, and so he became expendable.
Well, that's true, but I'm saying this was a prominent guy. After that, nobody went.
I think Fastow probably had a Cayman Islands account, and they said, look, you're going to do time. Here's an account. When you get out, you're going to have money.
But my point is once no one prominent has gone to prison since Obama came in.
For anything.
And Holder explicitly stated, and I've posted this video too, that his too big to jail policy for banks and bankers. And look at how many
the system.
Look at the big banks in this country. How much in fines have they paid over the last 10, 20 years? I mean, you're talking tens of billions of dollars of fines for criminals. I mean, J.P. Morgan has pled guilty as a firm to five felony accounts. So, but who commits those crimes? It's the brick and mortar. It's the shareholders. It's never an executive of J.P. Morgan. Yeah. And so, there's absolutely a two-tiered system of justice in this country that's completely obvious to anybody except apparently the Attorney General.
Well,
and the president.
One of those fines was for the Epstein connection with the Virgin Islands.
Right.
There was an investigation.
That was J.P. Morgan.
Oh, yeah. And they paid huge fines. Why, if it's a hoax? Why are they paying huge fines? Why did Leon Black pay a huge fine if it's a hoax?
Because he was such a good financial advisor, Rudy.
Yeah. There's a... that's on top of what he paid Epstein. He paid a fine to the Virgin Islands to shut up, to have him shut up. Right, the Virgin Islands had a prosecutor who was going after these guys like hard with subpoenas and everything. She subpoenaed Elon Musk. She subpoenaed all sorts of people with connections to Epstein, and she got fired like at some, before the investigation could get any further.
She got off easy.
Yeah, they didn't kill her, but the people who run the Virgin Islands were tied in very close to Epstein, and he was funding some of their things. In fact, I think he funded the kids their kids' private school tuition or something, which is another thing I've posted on. Epstein was financing charter schools in New York with Mike Bloomberg. He was financing Head Start programs in the Virgin Islands. I mean, he was financing everything. He's donating to the Friends of the IDF. He had a list, his charity, there's an old quote from Robert Fitrakis that, if you're involved in bad things, get involved in philanthropy, because then people will forgive you. So I think a lot of these people that glommed onto Epstein were just looking for money. And I think, but I do think that anyone that spent any amount of time with him, not someone who was just photobombed at a party, but, met with him and went to his house and traveled with him, they absolutely 100% knew what he was into. Now, whether they participated or not, I don't know. Probably most did not, but they certainly knew about it and they didn't care. Well, and that just shows you that the Caligula class that runs this country.
Well, and it seems like right now they're doing the best they can to try to sweep it under the rug. And I do think, absolutely. Thank God for individuals like yourselves and others sort of making sure that it doesn't get swept under the rug. But it looks like they're trying to transition to and just force the new tech, the new elite on us. And to your point earlier about KFOB, Dave, like everybody's like X is the free speech platform of the internet. Thank God Elon bought it. But I think that's sort of just a whole like carrot and stick where we're going to give you the carrot if you can speak free for a few years. But if you look at all the contracts they're giving Palantir, SpaceX, like they're setting up the digital surveillance state as we speak. And they're sort of saying, look, you have free speech right now.
Mike Ferris did a podcast with a guy named Aaron Day. And he talked about the digital authoritarianism that's coming in. And what was interesting about it was that he talked about the little things that I hadn't even thought of. Like he said, so you can't buy sugary soft drinks with food stamps. And everyone cheers about that. And then you go, well, but those are central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
Right? That's programmable money. They're doing it right there. And he went from example to example. And by the end, I'm going, holy shit, we are losing. Yeah. We are losing.
You go to the border. Everybody's like pumped about immigration stuff, but they're going to be like, you need a digital ID because we need to secure the border. And it's like, if you don't get it.
8 states have digital IDs now.
Yeah.
States.
What they really want to do is ultimately ban cash, because then they can monitor and control everything you do. And that's their goal.
Cash is freedom. Cash is freedom. I
absolutely.
know we'll just stay off Bitcoin, but cash is freedom. Well, we'll stay old school here.
Bitcoin is digital cash, but the big crypto, like they're making like we're going to be the crypto capital of the world. They had their 180-day crypto report. Bill Hines, David Sachs put it out and buried on like page 112 or something like that, just like in a small section, we recommend you extend the Patriot Act and include a sort of 6th condition, particularly for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, that like the wording, the way it was worded, would make it illegal for individuals to hold Bitcoin in their own wallet.
So is there any doubt in the crypto community, the what I'll call the lower tier crypto community, not the David Sachs crypto community, is there any doubt that they're attempting to assimilate? They're not just so I always thought the bad news was that when it goes mainstream's going to then totally swallow it like the Borg. Is there any doubt that is what they would like to do?
No, they're attempting to do it right now. And particularly with stable coins, like that is.
The stable coin story is awful. Aaron talked about that too. I mean, it's really a good podcast. It's worth watching.
Yeah. But the stable coins are the whole like, we're going to create these efficiencies with cross-border payments and it's going to drive demand for the treasuries.
Cause them to buy $2 trillion worth of treasuries to contribute to the Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. And they're acting like it's a Bitcoin like. They operate like Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer fashion, but they're all centrally issued, and anybody like they can easily turn into CBDCs. Like they can go to USDC, then go to Circle, then go to Tether, and say, "All right, we don't like this person receiving your stablecoin. Don't allow it to happen." And they could easily do that.
They can do it now.
Yeah, they are doing it now.
The debanking problem is huge.
Yeah. And they're LARPing. That's the thing, like going back to the K-fob Hegelian dialectic, they're like LARPing, like we're gonna prevent choke point 2.0, but choke point 3.0 is already happening. There was 2 cases in our industry in the last 2 weeks. Samurai Wallet, which was a wallet that allowed you to transact privately in Bitcoin. They had to plead guilty because they didn't want to go to jail for 60 years to money service conspiracy to be a money transmitter without a license. And then Tornado Cash, similarly, this week, same thing. They actually got prosecuted for one of those charges. And so publicly, they're saying we're going to be the crypto capital. We're going to lean into this freedom tech, but the DOJ and the SDNY.
So I was on a phone call with he's not a foreign intelligence officer. He's a foreign strategist. And I think he's a good guy. And I think the reason he talks to me is because he doesn't have to look over his shoulder when he's talking to me, right? Everyone else in his world is they're all looking both ways, right? Trying to figure out who's an ally and who's not. And so we have conversation I think he can't have with his friends. In the middle of the conversation, he says, do you use Signal? And I said, I can. And he says, let's go to Signal. And we get on Signal and he says, someone was listening to us. And he says he gets this indicator, and he didn't go into the details, that tells him that someone had sort of fairly directly tapped into the phone call. And I'm going, well, I personally don't think Signal's encrypted either, for that matter. I don't believe any of them are at this point.
Well, you're carrying around in your pocket all day the biggest surveillance device known to man.
Oh my
I think.
God, yes. Oh my God. Yeah. And it listens to you when the phone is off. You can power the phone down and it's listening to you.
Yeah, I have a Faraday bag, but I never use it. But what they already know about me and you, Dave. So we're fucked. Yeah. So maybe
I'll tell you where they had to put a Faraday cage. They had to put it in any bathroom that has only one stall. They should make it a Faraday cage so some guy can't sit there.
Oh, is this a problem for you, Dave?
It's a problem when I'm on the outside of the door.
Yeah. You have a wide stance. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. I don't. I think they really should prevent people from doing their emails.
Well, Nick Bryant. Speaking of Larry Craig, he brought it up in one of his recent podcasts. He says, "Look, Larry Craig was a senator for many years, very conservative, quote unquote, senator who was picking up guys in public restrooms." He goes, "How hard would it be to compromise that guy?" Like, he goes, a little kid with a camera, with a cell phone could do it. And so I think
it's even worse than that. So I'm in a Zoom group, and it's got some spectacular people and some amazing people go by. So we've had parliamentarians from different countries in Europe and stuff like that, including a guy named Bridgen, for example, who said he took all sorts of dirt on all sorts of trafficking to MI5, and they did not care, did not care. Right. And Jerome Corsi's on it, who has risen in my. But one day we had a couple of retired generals, and they mentioned a guy named Janda, who I had paid some attention to. And I stopped and I said, "Is he a good guy?" And they go, "Oh, totally good guy." Janda one day was the undersecretary of something to do with health. He was an orthopedic surgeon of considerable repute. And he was in D.C. on his first week of the job. And he's sitting with a grizzled veteran. The guy says to him, "Never go to a private party, ever." And he said, "Even if it's the vice president's house." This is back in the Bush administration. Yeah. And Janice says, "Why?" And the guy says, "Because you'll wake up in the morning in a fog with a Polaroid clipped to your shirt with you and a 5-year-old."
Yeah. That was in The Godfather, kind of like that.
They don't need to compromise you morally. They literally just need to slip a drug in your drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are we just destined to be beholden to the whims of these psychopaths?
I think so. That's my conclusion. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I don't. The problem I have is that the internet is, I used to say, it's democracy's greatest hope and worst enemy. And I realize that it's too powerful to the point where whoever does control it now has psychopathic potential. Yeah. So I'm not sure that anyone is qualified to be able to control it. And we know the guys who are controlling it are psychopaths. So
Well, I think people were hoping that Trump was that in 2015 when he comes in and says, he's talking about the stupid wars. He's bashing George W. Bush. He's talking about the banksters that didn't go to, he's railing against Goldman Sachs. And people are like, wow, I've never heard this before. Here's a billionaire. So you're thinking, well, if anybody can do it, it's his self, he's got tons of money and he clearly doesn't care whether people like him or not. And well, I think he does. But I mean, he was saying things that were like getting people riled up. And a lot of people voted for him because they thought he was going to change the status quo. And then, of course, he immediately puts Goldman Sachs in charge of his administration in 2016. Mnuchin and Cohn and a whole bunch of other swamp creatures, Bill Barr being the worst of all, and Pompeo, good God. And then the second time, I don't know what people were thinking. I think Bolton, swamp thing. But I don't know what people were thinking. I think that the second time that Kamala and Biden were just so awful, their administration was really awful, I thought. And that people, Trump, who by this time, even the MAGA people should have known he's a fraud. But, as opposed to Kamala, it's like I said, it's like picking, Ebola versus rabies, Ebola is survivable, maybe, but rabies isn't. So they went with Ebola. And maybe we'll survive it, maybe we won't. I mean, but it's the blatant way. This is something that is important to think about, I think, Dave, talking about it must be something really big for him to do this complete about face. Because remember, they first went from, it's on our desk, we're dealing with it, promises made, promises kept, to, okay, here's some lame binders to a bunch of sycophants and let them wave them around and stuff. And that's what I thought they would continue doing, just a half-ass sort of, oh, look over here.
But how did they misjudge that one so badly?
Because whatever it is so big that they're going to risk the 2026 midterms. And it has to be related, I think, to something that's very obvious now.
How did they think that the binders was going to somehow work? I think they were completely oblivious
because
to how much
95%. 98% of people don't know anything about it. They underestimated people's interest in this and knowledge of it. And I think it's because people still care about their kids, Democrats and Republicans, right? And I think if you look, there was a poll, and of course I saw it on Twitter the other day, like 90% of Republicans or 80% something of Democrats and Republicans want their things released. So for him to then come out and say it's a hoax and you're an idiot if you believe it, that was spitting in the face of everybody with a brain. And for them
actually insult his former followers, right?
And he also got other people in his administration to do it too. So it wasn't just Trump being a lone, loose cannon. It was he got the rest of the people, Kash Patel and Bongino, and say, well, there's nothing there. Oh, yeah, Epstein was suicidal. We know for sure. Bullshit. They
doctored the video. Obviously.
It's a joke. They're insulting our intelligence. They think
the video wasn't supposed to exist either.
Right. The video that didn't exist. Right. It's comical. It's clownish. Go ahead.
Why didn't Bongino resign? Because
exactly. Why?
Bongino had nothing to gain by doing that. So he has destroyed himself, in my opinion.
Maybe he went to a private party. I don't know.
Well, that's the problem. That's the question.
I don't know. It's got to be something huge that dramatically affects, I think, foreign policy or intelligence agencies. In other words, if we find out that the CIA was running this op with underage people, that would probably be. And people would be in uproar. If we found out this was another country doing that, they would be in uproar.
If we're talking big thing, my millennial brain, it's something with 9/11 that they really don't want to get out there.
That's even out there.
But
God, does anyone?
They don't want it to be clear. I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're still withholding some JFK files after 60-something years. Yeah. It's bad. And I think it would cause even the couch potatoes to kind of get up and revolt. And it's something so big like that they have to, to just say it's a hoax is it's just an insult to everybody.
What's really disconcerting and this really not encouraging is the only solution to this. We need to get back to the 2010s era WikiLeaks. It's not going to happen from within. And I wouldn't throw it on Julian Assange. He was essentially tortured for the better part of 15 years because of what he did. But
horrific.
We need we need people we need Seth Riches, we need Snowdens, we need people to leak this stuff and some journalistic entity with integrity to actually be able to receive it and report on it.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't get anywhere. I mean, I don't think you can name a single narrative that you actually believe as told. You name a narrative, and Marty, here's the game show. You name a narrative, and Rudy and I have to somehow collectively find what's wrong with the narrative, right? I just went through the USS Liberty story. I had been putting it off and thinking I didn't want to go there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just some narrative about talking about it. They interview the guys who are there. They interview the victims. It is undeniable that the Liberty was attacked by the Israelis knowingly. Undeniable.
Right.
And
I had a guy yelling at me the other day saying, no, it's a hoax, for bringing it up
it's not a hoax.
No, it's not a hoax. No, it's not. But people, they don't want to know. They don't want to know.
Well, the one we were talking about before we hit record, I mean, the Oklahoma City bombing. I think that's another one.
Yeah, that's another one.
That one's been lurking out there.
Or the Vegas shooting. I know Dave and I have gone down that route.
The Vegas shooting nothing holds together with the Vegas shooting.
Right.
That one, you can't even fake a story.
Right. And the plausible story, the real story behind that is fascinating and makes a lot of sense. Makes way more sense than the official narrative.
So the Collum story, I think, is he ignores some of the data.
Yeah.
John has a tendency to focus on something, and then you say, well, what about this part? And he says, that doesn't matter. And I go, but a self-coherent picture has to handle the facts. Now, you don't throw out a good model just because you can't make a fact fit at that moment.
Yeah.
But you got to say, but there's that. Why was this going on at ground level? You know,
that's a key. That's a key point.
For the audience who doesn't know, Collins' thesis is essentially there was like a Saudi coup in Vegas
to get Mohammed bin Salman.
Yes,
it was a hit. Yeah.
And Dave, what is the piece of data that you think Collins missing? That
he focuses on the helicopters behind the Mandalay shooting down into the crowd to flush Mohammed bin Salman out to try to hit him. The helicopters came from a U.S. air base where they were training 200 miles away, and the transponders were being turned off. And he makes a very good case. The problem is there's tons of footage at ground level, things happening, and it's not just the helicopters.
Yeah.
And there's tons of it, ridiculous amounts. And I had figured out that the story was flawed before the sun rose the night of it, because I was kind of glued
the official
to it
story.
Going, holy shit. The official story. I knew before the sun rose that there was something wrong with the story.
Yeah. Well,
and it's the biggest shooting since the Civil War, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And the anti-gun lobby doesn't mention it because it's toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other one, a few weeks ago, the guy went into BlackRock and killed that executive. That one was awesome.
Mangione.
Yeah.
Mangione. I don't think any of these shootings are legit.
Well, look at Crooks. That's all memory hold. And the other guy, Ruth, who had ties to Ukraine and everything else.
Ruth was farcically bizarre.
Yeah.
At least Crooks, you could say, okay, classic MK Ultra, kid got brainwashed. As I think Mangione looks to me. But Ruth, it almost looks like it's a caricature of a conspiracy. I mean, it just didn't hold together. Yeah, it was almost there to just make us all feel stupid watching it or something.
Right.
But I don't think I think you could probably go back to the Columbine shootings and find that those kids were drug-addled by who the hell knows. Their hard drives keep disappearing. They're
even eliminating, outside involvement in some of these shootings. I always think they should drug test anybody involved in a mass shooting and see what sort of antipsychotic drugs they're on or what drugs they're on, what prescription.
And also, by the way, tell us something about what led up to it. We get nothing.
Yeah.
We get nothing.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I think you actually didn't you cover that when your annual letters like
which one?
It had to be a few years ago now at this point, but
which of the shootings we've talked about?
Well, just like the SSRI stats of people that actually commit these shootings is.
Oh, they're all drug-addled teenagers.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're all drug-addled teenagers. They're classic MK Ultra victims, right? They've got all the hallmarks of that kind of brainwashing. I actually believe the Kamala Harris being a Manchurian candidate theory. I think that holds together pretty well, actually. I've dug a lot into that. I think Harris was brainwashed.
What leads you to believe that?
I was watching her. The first real hint was when her teleprompter went off and she acted like a robot that had short circuited. She just couldn't function. And then one day, and then I started following Candace Owens, and Candace started tracking the genealogy of her aunts and uncles, and it wasn't holding up at all. So that guy wasn't her uncle. That guy wasn't her aunt. That woman wasn't her aunt. You find out that her mother, you hear this, she worked 2 jobs, blah, 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 blah. She's a professor, right? She wasn't working 2 jobs. She was a professor. She wasn't a sweetheart. She was a tyrant. And where did she work? She worked at McGill. That's where all the goddamn MK Ultra crap stems from. And then I'm on a podcast with Jim Kunstler, and he mentioned this woman named Elizabeth Nixon. Who's Elizabeth Nixon? Spelled Nickson. And she's a Time Magazine European head, right? Big time journalist person. And she had been the Life Magazine North American head, right? And she discovers her mother had been victimized by MK Ultra. She found out that her mother was all fucked up for that. And so she took 3 years off from her job and studied MK Ultra. And so Kunstler's telling me this story on a podcast. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the podcast, she starts talking about Kamala Harris. She says Harris has all the traits. She's got all these different personalities that kind of pop up. And in the way she phrased it, she said Harris can't access her intellect. And if you look at Harris's rise to power, it kind of goes through that sort of street walking bimbo, Epstein girl.
Like Montel Williams, Willie
That's
Green.
right, right. Through the Diddy kind of flavored crowd, up through the governor, up through, and next thing you know, she's running for president. And so I'm going to write on this one.
Well, I think she's supposed to run for governor next California election, isn't she?
I think she pulled out. Did
she really?
I think the other day, yeah.
Good,
Someone
although
had to
anybody would
pull
be
out.
better than Gavin Newsom.
He's, by the way, Peter Schweitzer says he's the most Chinese-owned politician in the country.
Oh, I don't doubt it. He's horrific. He's just run California to the ground. He makes Jerry Brown look like George Washington. He's just ridiculous.
Really
ridiculous. Guys, like I used to compare her to Trudeau. Another pretty boy, Getty family money and all that.
Castro.
It's the Gettys and the Browns and the Pelosi. The families have run the state forever,
right. There's like 3 families that have run the whole state for a whole century.
Pelosi, Getty, Brown,
Gambino, right?
Well, they're all tied in. They're all tied into her. It's basically organized crime. Politics is organized crime now.
Have you ever fallen down the Getty Museum rabbit hole?
You
No.
mean the tunnels? The tunnels.
Yeah.
I
There's a lot of tunnels
stumbled
around.
upon it. The tunnel story, right? By the way,
that's another one.
Case. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been down that rabbit hole bigly.
Yeah.
I had long conversations with Nick Bryant, and I have to be careful because people tell me stuff off record. And I got to remember which is off and which is not off. But he says he's got information on stuff that he can't make the case that's airtight, and he's really fanatical about that. If he doesn't have the facts, he doesn't say it. And he mentioned a few names of people that he thinks are dead to right pervs, and some of them would really shock the shit out of people. So you mentioned Tucker, I think, before we were filming. By the way, Tucker just slipped in a Shroud of Turin expert ahead of me now, so I think my interview got deep sixth. My fear is that it's just because I was boring as shit. And maybe even because he wanted me to hammer universities, and I didn't hammer him as much as he wanted. But in any event, it seems to be I seem to be getting preempted by everybody. But we spoke for an hour and a half before the interview, and we spoke for about an hour and a half after. We had a great conversation, but somehow we hit Satanism. And without spilling my guts, he makes me look like a piker. He makes me look like a piker.
Well, that's what I mean. I sort of trend that way. Like, I think we're in a spiritual battle here.
You get to the good and evil, and you go, look, I'm not a religious guy, but when you start talking about evil, you got to kind of hope there's a good out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I have never wanted to be religious, but I have increasingly been supportive of those who have chosen that path.
It's the same. I told someone the other day, it's the same battles people were fighting 1,000 and 2,000 years ago.
That's right.
It's the same. It's the same thing, just manifests a little bit differently. Nothing new under the sun, really, other than I guess video recording now. But it's bad.
But the bad stuff. Here's the thing that's and I talk about Nick about this a lot, and other people. The things people do to the kids are simply not imaginable. Right, Marty, you've been down this rabbit hole. Rudy, you've been down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I try and avoid it, but yeah.
After you've read a lot about it, you start acclimating to the harsh reality that it is happening.
Yeah.
And you don't know the breadth of it, right? You get the sense that it's potentially broadly based. But you're sitting there going, why would parents ship their kids into a satanic cult? Biology tells me, evolutionary biology says that would not be the way to propagate your genes. Let's start with that. But the evidence is there that they do it.
There's a great relevant quote. Only the small secrets need to be protected. The large ones are kept secret by public incredulity. In other words,
right.
Dave, what you're saying, it can't be true. I don't want to believe it. It can't be true. So it just ends there. It ends there. They don't want. That's what I say. People don't want to know. They don't want to know because it's very discouraging. And as someone who's learned a number of things that I'd rather not know, it's very discouraging. And that's why I always try to say I'm, hopeful, which I am, and positive. But once you stare into the abyss too much, it starts staring back at you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But then you look at someone like Stalin or Mao, and you go. And by the way, we supported Stalin, knowing that he was slaughtering millions and millions of people. Yeah. And we hid that. Durante, the famous journalist, wrote puff pieces about Stalin while he was slaughtering millions. And we left 20,000 U.S. soldiers in gulags at the end of World War II. Right. That we never got back. Never got them back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not, it's shown that the government does not work in the interest of Americans in many cases. Absolutely. Orwell was a socialist, but he fought against that. You could not criticize among socialist circles, in the 30s and 40s, you could not criticize Stalin, no matter what he did, because he was fighting Hitler. And that was sort of like the opposite of, when you couldn't say anything nice about Russia because we've decided they are the great Satan, a few years back.
So it's Obama. Now flipped, right? So now Putin's the evil demon.
Yeah, he's the evil guy. Yeah, he's the evil guy.
He looks, as I said to Tucker, I said, I'm the first right of center libertarian commie dog.
I've been called everything. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But Putin looks like the most grounded leader in the world, and you go, but he's a beast, right? He kills people. I go, yeah, but try to run Russia without being that tough. Well,
all of our presidents, they hug and kiss the Saudi rulers. I mean, they're butchers. Come on, who are we kidding?
Total butchers.
Total butchers. So at least be consistent. I mean, is Putin a bad guy? Yeah. But so, frankly, so I think are most U.S. presidents. I mean,
we killed 5 million people since 9/11.
Yeah. Probably about 99.9% of them that had absolutely nothing to do with it, maybe even more. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, and the same people that were in charge, the same people that were promoting that, are still promoting our neocon foreign policy now. It's criminal, and our foreign policy is. I mean, look at what's going on now. Half our Congress is over in Israel.
Right.
And they went there to avoid voting on transparency on Epstein. It's insane. It's
and the
insane.
Other half is going next week. I think the Republicans are there this week. The Democrats are there next week.
Yeah. And whenever someone comes at me and goes, the Republicans suck or the Democrats suck, I'm like, yeah, and the Republicans do too. I say the opposite. It's like both. The people that are still stuck in the Dems are good or Republicans are good and the other party's bad, you are in a dead end. We got to get rid of both parties. I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for I used to vote for Ron Paul every time, but he's going to be 90, I think, this year. Vote for anybody. Vote for the Libertarian. Vote for the Peace and Freedom. Vote for the, Revolutionary Black Socialist Party. Anything except the Democrat or Republican. I'm telling you. And people say, "Oh no, well then, you have to make a choice between one or two." No, I made a choice. I'm not going to vote for either one of them, or don't vote at all. Frankly,
so is a guy who voted for Trump the first time with his hand shaking as he pulled the lever.
Yeah.
But thinking.
Well, I don't blame you, because I'm glad Hillary lost. Yeah.
Hillary was, to me, demonic, right?
Right. I agree.
And she's probably way worse than I thought she was at the time, since I've dug into the whole Pizzagate stuff. And then we get to 2020, and I went back and looked at my Twitter feed just to double check, and I was tweeting in 19 about Biden not being cognitively all there. And this was not a metaphorical he's demented. I could say Rudy's demented. That doesn't mean he's demented. These were statements that he was losing his marbles, right. No, I was trying to be subtle. And and so it's clear that we knew he was losing his marbles before 2020. Yeah. And yet they put him up, right? They put him up. They could have had anyone else, but they put him up.
There's a picture of him on stage with his wife. His wife's at the podium. He's standing to her side, and she has her arm out, and he leans over and starts sucking on her fingers at a public event. That was 2019. Exactly right. And so I was posting that 2019 going, in fact, I think in 2020 I said that the leading cause of the way COVID is spread is from sucking on Joe Biden's fingers. So, it was such a joke. And that was 6 years ago. And, everybody knew he was losing it. And I have to say, with some of Trump's statements lately, I wonder if he's losing it too.
Well, he's old enough now where it's a legitimate old age problem, right?
Right.
So I voted for Trump the second time.
Yeah.
And it's not.
You voted for Ebola.
Well, yes and no. It's interesting. Psychologists have studied this. If you take left-leaning and right-leaning people, they design these tests to see if you can walk around in the shoes of the other team. So can you steel man an argument?
Yeah.
And it turns out the left can, the right can. So if you said to me, name 10 reasons why people hate Trump, I could fire them off, right? Yeah. I wouldn't even have to think. If you ask a left-winger, name 10 reasons why people like Trump, they can't do it. They can't come close. They can't. It's beyond their imagination. So many of us voted for Trump for several reasons. One is he had 4 years to ponder, right? And I think that 4 years had the potential for being a huge benefit. And then the other is if not Trump, then no one. So we had, this was kind of like it's 4th and 15. There's 10 seconds on the clock. You're going to send your quarterback, deep in the pocket, and he's going to hurl that fucking ball. And that's the only play we had, right? And so the great dismay. Now, I still can't rule out the possibility that we're getting our ass kayfabed off, and that he actually is doing things. Like guys like Kennedy. What, do you see that vaccine story today?
No.
Kennedy says they're trying to develop a universal vaccine for everything. I go, what are you talking about? What are you talking? There's no such thing as a vaccine for everything, unless you want to call it vitamin C or something, right? And that's absurd. And so then the question is, Mike Benn said something about this. Again, now I'm going down memory lane. I've had to reread my annual reviews because Bob Moriarty's binding them, and so I've had to proof them. Something has changed in 10 years. The ones I wrote 10 years ago, you could see in the writing that I felt that when you got information that you had it, that you got it. And now you get the information that says, oh, by the way, Trump did X or so-and-so did Y. And you go, how the fuck do I know? Mm-hmm. There's no confidence left in my writing. And I think what happened was, I think they couldn't suppress the signal being, we're learning about pedophilia, we're learning about trafficking. So they have to raise the noise. And Mike Benn said around 2013, they realized they were losing the narrative on the internet. right? The deep state guys were saying, look, we've got to get control of this because we're going to have revolutions. The elites are going to lose. And so I think they really put the propaganda machine into full gear and said, how do we just bury people? And I think it's to keep guys like me just totally preoccupied chasing false bogeys and throwing up my hands and saying, Elon looks like he's going to save us, then he's going to hurt us, and then you're just being whipsawed.
Yeah.
And
that's where
I don't know how to process the information anymore.
Well, I feel like in the digital age, we're getting to the point where, to your point, like the signal to noise ratio, that was predicted, like in the 90s, or like in the information age, there's going to be.
Bannon admits it. There's a video I posted. He comes out and says it. We're going to throw 4 or 5 things at them, and they're all going to go nuts because they can only focus on one thing, and then we're going to get this other thing done.
Yeah,
I posted that too.
So here's
remember the drones in Jersey?
Yeah. The drones in Jersey, yeah.
Perfect example.
We knew. No one in their right mind thought that the drones in Jersey were anything but ours, right?
I don't know.
A lot of normies thought they were UFOs.
Well, I don't. Or Chinese is what another theory that they were probing.
If we let Chinese drones fly over New Jersey, we really are a totally lost cause. That was just us fucking around.
Okay.
It's like the weather balloon flying across the entire country, and then we shoot it down over the Atlantic. Right? We knew what that weather balloon was. They didn't tell us what it was, but there's no way they didn't know what it was. And so they're fucking with us. I don't believe the alien stories at all. No. Because my understanding of the laws of physics is that if there's organisms out there that have solved the problem of crossing the great expanse of the universe, they don't give a shit about us, right? They're not landing in a cornfield.
What if they're not aliens?
Elaborate.
What if it's something Gary Nolan described it as, they've been here forever. It's something we don't know. We don't know what it is. I think absolutely there are UAPs out there that, excluding the hoaxes and excluding the false sightings of Venus and excluding military psyops and military programs, there are things going on that I think the government knows about them, has known about them for a long time, and I think that we don't know their motives, and we can't stop them and we can't control them, and so they're trying to build the narrative around that fact.
So did they come here, or were they here the whole time?
I don't think. My personal theory is they're not coming from some star system 5,000 light years away. They're here. There's some sort of, you get sort of into the John people. Keel sort of the spiritual thing too. What is it? Or it could be parallel, some sort of weird physics things. I was just listening to a podcast where they were talking about the way that these things move that they think are craft. And they always keep saying craft. And I'm like, well, what if they're not craft? But anyway, 0 point energy. There's something about if they can do something with, well, you know more than I do about all this stuff, Dave, the science of it. But it's like they have an understanding of physics that we have not achieved yet. Theoretically, I've listened to guys. Oh God, there's a great podcast I'll send to you, Dave, where it's all the A-list, physicists and stuff talking about this stuff. And the way they put it is, we understand theoretically how this could work, how these things could go from 0 to gazillion miles an hour instantly and then stop without crushing everyone's side. They understand how it could work, but we don't have the engineering to do it yet. I'll send you the podcast, Dave. It's much better. I highly recommend it. It's a bunch of guys like you.
Yeah, obviously smarter.
You cannot deny that there are things that are seen that we don't know what they are. It could be a natural phenomenon. It could be a geomagnetic thing. God knows. But they're not all secret American programs. They're all a UAP means is unidentified aerial phenomenon to begin with too. So to say there's no such thing, there is. I tend to think it's something it's from the Earth, and I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but I think I don't think it's coming from a starship, and I think my personal view is that it's something that's been with us since the dawn of time. And so is Gary Nolan, who's not a religious person. He's a biochemist or whatever. There's some really smart scientists that are on
Send
this
me something good, because
I will.
The other thing I could imagine is that they are projections. So you can make a projection move at any speed you want.
Yeah. I'm open to anything. I don't know what it is. I tend to think, the guys that I've read over the years that are closest to my own views are guys like John Keel or Jacques Vallée, who also questions the extraterrestrial hypothesis. So anyway, I have a whole high strangeness thread where I just throw different things out there on that. Yeah. But I'll send you a couple links that I think are from scientists like yourself that you can listen to, and especially the one I just heard, which I think is from November of last year, which is just amazing what they're talking about. So there are people studying this stuff, serious scientists on this, who don't believe it's, nothing. So there you go.
Yeah, and
do we know who they work for?
Well, some of these guys are VC guys. Some of them are scientists. A lot of them are academics like yourself. I don't know. I'll let you decide if you think.
I'm reading Corsi's book on the Russia collusion story.
Yeah.
And the breadth of it, the number of people involved in it is just staggering, right? And so we have guys on payroll everywhere. And in this digital age, this is potentially the noise. This is the noise.
The UAP or the Russian?
Yeah, and anything they want, right?
Yeah.
That whatever narrative you want. I like to ask the question. This is related to October 7th. I like to ask the question: can you name a government that doesn't lie profusely to its people? And the answer, or to the world, and the answer is no. You cannot. And so my next question is do you know what happened on October 7th? And people sort of sit there and they realize they're kind of cornered. They go, well, we know hundreds of people died. And I go, do you? Would you bet your life on it?
I mean, the narrative around that has never made sense from the beginning. Like the most highly secure border.
Right.
Had a 6-hour lapse in
Mike, Sam Faddis had good comments on that. Yeah.
But here's the other thing is, for a fact, no matter what country, call it country A, and there's some event that happens, for a fact that the narrative coming out of that country is going to be optimized for that country's needs.
Yeah.
Period. So they're lying. Because they're amplifying it up, they're ramping it up to get exactly what they want. Right? Pearl Harbor.
WMDs.
Remember the Maine, Gulf of Tonkin, USS Liberty, right? And so you can't say with any confidence whatsoever that you have any understanding of what happened on October 7th. For all we know, the hostages are not even real. They don't exist. For all you know, the hostages that have been released were living in a safe house. You don't know anything.
How do we operate in a world where we don't know anything? I've been coming around more to this.
This is the 10-year change for me. It was 10 years ago when I was writing about stuff, it really felt like when I got a fact, it stayed, right? I could throw it in the fact pile. And it doesn't feel that way now.
It's like the journey to the Great Awakening is asymptotic. Like you're just always get very close, but never actually.
Well, I just read an article by someone the other day that was talking about the catastrophic shape of the German economy, and how it's been really a mess for 3 years. The DAX has gone parabolic. I can't. My brain won't let me deal with that. So we've got a catastrophic German economy, and we've got a German equity market that thinks that's euphoric.
Yeah, and it's happening here too, right?
Oh, totally.
And that's the question: is all this, with this, what our first conversation talked about. I think at the core of a lot of what we talk about is the economy and economics. Is all this K-fob? Oh, just to paper over or to distract from.
Well, take a look at the NASDAQ today. Just pop it up and look at it. It looks like this every day. It just goes up and then camps. The rampant camp. The classic rampant camp. If it drops, it does the drop and flop. it just, there's no price discovery. There's no response. There's no, and so the question is, how are they doing it? And it could be the Mike Green story of money just keeps flowing in, and that will stop. I'm 100% confident, and I think Rudy agrees, being 130 years in this game, that it simply will stop. It's a guarantee it will stop. What you don't know is when, and you don't know what it's going to look like. But nothing goes on forever in that game. And so at some point, the money flows will reverse. And what seemed like a real good idea for almost a half a century is going to be a bad idea. And what the people don't know about today, recency bias is a bitch. Recency bias, it's 40 plus years, is incomprehensibly a bitch. Right? When the Berlin Wall fell, it was unimaginable because we had all grown up with the Berlin Wall being absolutely undeniably going to be there forever. And then it wasn't. Yeah. My wife's destroying shit in the other room. And so, and so the markets are kayfabe. They don't respond to anything.
Right, which is why I never trade anymore. I'm just because I don't know. I'm waiting for some volatility. It just seems like we just go straight up. So the only thing to do is just buy in.
It seems like they want to go into a melt-up scenario, right? Lowering rates, all this fiscal spending.
Well, and everyone's using the same language. Yeah. Red flag, right?
Yeah.
They say that any good idea eventually becomes a bad idea, right? Once it's well known, it's no longer a good idea. It's no longer a good indicator. It's no longer anything. So,
well, it's 93% or something of all stocks are owned by 10% of the people, and so it's just a continuation of this Cantillon effect, and they're trying to spike it even further, And it's the wealth inequality has spiked since we went off gold in '71 dramatically, and I think it's related to the financialization of everything. And if you were to come from space, speaking of spacemen, and come down here and look at our way we operated, you would think that policy is designed to policy is designed to get the stock market up. I mean, or more broadly, to make the richest people in the world richer. I mean,
but people don't. One of the things I've discovered is the average investor doesn't know the difference between price and valuation.
Of course not.
And as a consequence, they don't realize is that when you are 200% over historical average valuation, you are looking at a 1/3 projected return rate off that price, if you wish, right? The simplistic model.
If things revert.
Well, but maybe we don't revert. If you're sitting there at a PE of 50, your price return 2% on your cash flow. And the assumptions
number go up.
6%.
But number go up. It doesn't. It doesn't matter. That's. I mean, I think it's just as repulsive as you do from an intellectual basis, but that's just kind of the way it is.
But
it seems.
You do know it will stop though.
I do, and I don't know when, but I do. I do know this movie's going to end badly. It's just going on much longer than I would have expected in the past.
Without a narrative. Right? So the roaring 20s, they were roaring, so it's forgivable. The dot-com bust, it felt like the world was changing profoundly. Even the real estate bubble of 07, everyone was getting to own a house and stuff, and so it just, so it's forgivable that
David
people
Sachs
buy
is
into
doing
the
great.
narrative.
Bill Ackman's doing great.
Yeah, I know.
Barry Sternlicht is kind of in trouble.
That's not a narrative.
But I mean, who do you think Trump surrounds himself with? People like that, and so he's, he doesn't care that you or I are treading. Well, we're doing better than most people, but there's half the country I think's been in a depression since 2008 at least, and nobody cares about them. Mark Faber had a great line. He goes, he's telling some reporter, Bloomberg, I think. He goes, you guys never have any normal people on your show. You just, you don't know. You don't talk to anybody who has struggling with inflation or anything. I constantly, make jokes about that. They talk, hey, Scott Wapner, have you talked to, what do you think about inflation? It's fine. Everybody says it's fine. And then you got guys like Mohammed El-Arian saying, we should have a 4% target. That'd be great. This is like a billionaire. This really ticks me off is that these are people that have more money than God, but they go out of they want more, and they want more at the expense of some, single mom that's trying to survive, and that ticks me off. It's just it's bullying or something. And then of course all of our policies are designed to enrich people and impoverish poor people. I mean, the middle class gets it the worst because they're not rich enough or poor enough to get welfare, of any major importance. So I'm a spokesman for the middle class, which is where I came from. Yeah. And I'm vehement about it because these guys that have, especially since 2008, that have just, the first to line up at the public trough to get bailed out, privatizing profits and socializing losses. I really believe that. And I sound like some sort of ranting, Trotskyite or something, but I didn't start this way, but I have eyes and I have ears, and I've paid attention to this financial markets for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And the direction we've gone is just off the rails. And there's a reason why people voted for a game show host in 2016. And, maybe the next guy that comes in and promises, look at how insane they're going over, what's his name, Mondami or whatever in New York.
Oh my God.
Well, it could go the other way too. People are not happy with the status quo.
This brings up a good question. If they keep going, that's the big, you're going to get polar, both ends of the spectrum.
I posted 10 years ago. Why do I rail against the central banks? I do it because they are driving people to extremism with their wealth inequality policies, and it's only gotten infinitely worse. Since I posted that. You're right, Marty. It could go either way. You got Trump this time. Maybe you get a I'm sorry, I don't know his name. Mondami the next time at the presidential level. Now. People say, "Oh, well, America would never vote for that," and I hope not, because that's not the way to go. Actually, what we should do is try capitalism. There's no way that John Mack and Lloyd Blankfein should be billionaires in a capitalist society. They were bailed out, and as Silicon Bank depositors who should have known better were bailed out. People like Bill Ackman and his crowd. They know that everybody and their mother knows that there's a FDIC limit of $250K or something. They're keeping 10 or hundreds of millions of dollars there. And, what we did was we bailed them out. There was a bailout. That was a taxpayer bailout of these guys. So it's just, I see it happens all the time. I know they're trying to pull a private equity bailout right now by, shoveling it into grandma's 401K.
What they're also doing? There's another thing they're doing. They're setting up new private equity firms with new money, which is a Ponzi scheme, right? Yeah. And they're now moving the assets from the old ones, which are underneath Harvard's jurisdiction, into new ones, which are not.
The continuation funds, yeah.
So the continuation funds, and so they're using them to liquidate the ones that are in the hands of people who are powerful enough to want to get out. Yeah. Because they have 7 to 10 year escape clauses, some of them.
This is manifesting in secondary funds too. They're becoming very popular right now.
That's right.
And just look at the Trump coin, which I think has I looked it up a minute ago, fully diluted value of all the coins of like $10 billion. I mean, and Trump is going to make more off that than he's probably made in his life,
Well, except it's illiquid, so I'm not sure.
Well, fine, but even if he makes $1 off it, it's such a grubby grifting of the presidency. And then someone will go, "What about Clinton? 100%. I posted about Clinton 10 years ago. Him and Hillary made about $160 million giving speeches to Wall Street guys like Yellen does. That's the thing. Get out of the D versus R nonsense. They're both bad. Okay, maybe they're bad in different ways, or the Democratic Party is more in favor of your abortion policies, and the Republican Party is more in favor of your gun control, but they're all overall. That's just a game they play to play us off against each other. We need a new party, and I don't think it's going to be Elon Musk. No, he's not the savior.
They'll swallow it.
Quit looking for political saviors, as Whitney Webb, who Marty has interviewed, said one time. By the way, you should have her back instead of us too. She's great.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. And I supposedly set up an interview with Nick Bryant and a prominent guy, but I don't know. We'll see if that happens. But
so anyway. I tried to as well. I tried to get
promote Nick.
There.
Yeah, what you said about Nick, I totally agree. Nick is not going to. he's not going to make a statement unless he really believes it to be true. Yeah. And if you look at some of what he said about this case, it's pretty jarring. And I've posted some of it, and I think it's Nick_Bryant on Twitter. Everybody should go there and listen to his podcast and read his books. I have a whole thread on that got started because of his book about the Franklin scandal years ago.
Yeah, and he's the journalist in Manhattan, right?
I don't know where he's located.
Yeah. Well, he's also ghostwritten some books. He used to ghostwrite for people because he himself was not prominent. So he would.
The Hollywood Madam one, I think I've got now.
Right. He also wrote about Watergate being a takedown of Nixon. Not that he was brought down by it, but an intentional takedown of Nixon. He wrote on that.
Yeah.
And
that's another rat hole.
That is. It's another, I was taught my whole life Nixon was a bad guy. And in the last few years, I'm like, oh, shit.
And you didn't notice that Woodward was Navy intelligence and Deep Throat was, FBI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every single person in that game was deep state. Every last one in that game was deep state.
Well, even now on some of the networks, at least a few years ago when Russophobia was at its peak, I mean, you had former CIA directors as hosts on various CNBC or not CNBC, MSNBC or on Fox. They don't even have to compromise journalists anymore. They just go on and hey, I'm former CIA. This is the news. So it's the news in this country is ridiculous. And I mean, what you were saying earlier, Dave, about can you trust anything? I mean, you sound, if you just change it to strictly financial matters, that was Tony Deaton, and you know who Tony Deaton is, right? He's a brilliant guy. And he says the same thing. He goes, I can't believe any numbers. He goes, you want to believe, but then you realize as you get older that it's all they lie to you. It's all lies.
His annual report this year was way darker than normal.
I haven't read it. I should look. His company.
Edelweiss.
What is it? Edelweiss? Yeah, Edelweiss. Yeah.
I was supposed to fly to Switzerland to the annual meeting, and it was just so hard for me to travel.
Do you own any shares?
No.
Yeah.
He just called me. He calls me one day and he says, "I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse."
Yeah.
Go, okay, go for it. And he said, he knows that my wife has health issues and make traveling hard. And he says, I will hire a private duty nurse to take care of your wife. And I said, well, that's not the problem. It's just getting on a plane and this and that.
Wow.
And then it's interesting. He kind of backed out. And I think he realized that even though I didn't refuse his offer, my suspicion is that he realized that he had leaned pretty hard and that maybe he should back off. So he kind of let me off the hook, and I didn't go. He invited me to stay for 2 weeks on his 25-acre strawberry farm on Crete.
I don't think I'm aware of this guy. Why?
He's got some real money. I'll send you a link, Marty. You have an interview that Grant Williams did with him a few years ago. He's like
So do you know the backstory of that interview? Do you know the backstory of that interview?
No, not really. No.
So Tony calls me one day, and I'm chatting with him, and I said, you ought to do a podcast with Grant Williams. And he says, okay. So I sent it to an introductory email, and that was during the Real Vision heyday. And Grant took a film crew to Switzerland and did a two-part interview of Tony. But what blew my circuits was he opens the interview with, this is the first public interview Tony's ever done. And I go, holy shit. And then one day he was being interviewed, and they said, how did you vote Tony? And they said, Collum did it.
Well, you know everybody.
It's a little stupid. Yeah, I'm more Rolodex than content.
I wouldn't say that. Why is his perspective?
He's just so different. He's just so different.
He's old school. He's very old school, very Buffett-like. He doesn't look at the share prices. He buys companies that make widgets, things like that. But he used to talk about it. You know how if you listen to Lacey Hunt 2 or 3 years ago, Lacey would just be sort of matter of fact about we're going to do X and we're going to do Y. And then he seemed to get kind of apocalyptic. Mm-hmm. And I sent him an email. And I said, Lacey, I've listened to a lot of your interviews. You sound more dire. You sound more stressed. And he said, you would be correct. My wife is insisting I take a vacation now. So there's some really big hitters out there who are just saying, I just don't see where we can get out of this one. Yeah. But my write-up in 2015, I made a compelling case that the markets were ridiculously overvalued. What's compelling? Data, plots, quotes from the most famous investors in the world saying the markets are heading for a cliff. And where did we go since 2015? Nothing but straight up.
Right.
And I got no one saw that coming. They thought we were at the end of the rope again. 10 years later.
Mike Green's, passive theories make sense. Everybody, you're now mandatory to get into a passive fund, and you put in the S&P 500, and it's a completely price insensitive way of investing. So until the flows reverse, everything's about the flows. So until the flows reverse, I think, here's the thing, Dave, if flows keep coming in, it doesn't matter if NVIDIA's at 200 times earnings, they'll buy it at 5,000 times earnings. It won't matter until it matters.
Then when they finally stop coming in, this is like, you're looking up at the mountain and you're going, it's been snowing every day for a goddamn month and there's been no avalanche, right?
Right.
Richard Russell once was asked, why can't this go on forever? And he says, go into your kid's room and start stacking blocks and keep stacking them. What happens? And what happens is the stack gets so high that it becomes hyper shock sensitive, and you end up with a big fucking pile of debris when that pile falls. Right. So the further from equilibrium you get, the more you blow yourself up when you return.
Well, I think what Mike suggested, if I'm remembering right, is even in March 2020 when the market went down like 30% or something like that, he said apparently there was almost very little index selling. There was some, and just a little bit was enough to get a 30% drop, in other words. In other words, you're going to have potentially just huge gaps down, whatever the circuit breakers will allow, maybe days in a row, which someone like me, I'd be like, awesome, stocks are on sale. Because it's so funny that, what's the only thing that people don't want to buy when it's on sale? And that's generally stocks,
Right.
And everybody wants to buy them when they're at the top, and of course that works. Momentum investing has worked, but this price insensitive investing is it's great until it's not. Yeah, you're right. So, and I don't know when the demographic cliff is going to hit, but
what I'm positive is here's what I said this yesterday. I think I think that if I never buy another stock, I will go to my grave better off. So if I just say no stocks, I do not believe that this whole thing can go through a real, when they call something 10% drop or 15% drop a correction, then 6 months later it's back to a new high. That's not a correction.
Right.
What do you guys think of I'm thinking of this, like what could reverse the trend of these flows? And in my mind, retirement being one. Recession. Well, the other one is like, does inflation get to a point where people are just forced to tap in? And this is what I'm looking up right now, like early 401k withdrawals.
Yeah, that's already a thing. But there's a point where, well, first of all, most 401ks, most people don't have any money in them, or they have very little, even the people that have them, IRAs. But let's say, what is it, Dave, where you're forced to start taking distributions? Is it 70 or
72?
72. Okay, so I don't know, when a bulk of boomers hit 72, maybe that's when the flows start to change.
But if $300,000 salaries are 62% of the time in credit card trouble, right? There's all sorts of ways this can stop.
Yeah,
and we just don't know. The butterfly will flap its wings somewhere over Madagascar, and that'll be the end of that.
Right. I mean, we haven't had a bear market really since, 08, 09.
Right,
right. And by the way, rates were being cut all the way down. I posted a chart of that yesterday. Same thing in 2001 to 2003. Rates were being cut all the way down as the index lost 50%. The index, S&P 500 index lost over 50% in both 2001 to 03 and from 08 to 09, 07 to 09. And 50%, and they're cutting rates the entire time. And all the way down to zero.
People think that cutting rates is bullish.
Yeah, it's not. It's
not. When they're cutting rates, it means that you're in the middle of an avalanche.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of argument that high rates are a sign of a healthy economy, and low rates are a result of a sick economy. And certainly, I think we've had a sick economy, at least until recently, as far as the rates. I mean, we're finally normal. Market keeps going up. I don't know. I think it's the flows that explain it. But
that's the most perplexing thing to me with like the battering to lower rates is like, I thought it became a consensus view from 2015 on that zero interest rate policy was not a good thing. It's something we should try to get away from.
Tom Honig's good on this because he was around when they voted on all this stuff. He says, that's the problem. Even the people, there's a lot of smart people that say, they don't have a problem with the Fed moving in like QE1 or something. I mean, we could still debate that. Don't get me started. But I'll concede that. Okay, the immediate emergency, you're trying to save the pension funds or whatever. You step in and you lower rates or whatever for whatever good that does. But it's after the economy is back booming. They're still doing QE and they still have rates at zero. I mean, they were buying mortgage-backed securities. The Fed, they owned zero in 2008. They bought 2.7 trillion at the peak this time, and they're now down to like 2.3 because they're so underwater on it that they can't sell them. They have to let them run off. But they were buying hundreds of billions of mortgage-backed securities when Case-Shiller was running over 20% year over year house prices. They had no business being in mortgage-backed securities at all. And in fact, it's argued that it's illegal. Not that matters, because if it went to Congress, Congress would vote, okay, let them do it. Because Congress, go back to the Fed's Congress's drug dealer. But Randy Woodward has a great clip that I posted talking about this, where he says, he's in the bank bond business. He's like, I had clients buying more MBS. I don't know why. Yes, they were down a bit, but I don't know why the Fed went nuts on it. And he goes, the rumors I heard, this is from Randy, was that somebody in Europe was in trouble and they were trying to bail them out, help them out, and buy the MBS or whatever. So again, it goes to bailing out, not letting capitalism work. Let some billionaires fail. When was the last time a billionaire failed? I mean, I guess it can happen theoretically, but Lloyd Blankfein should be bankrupt.
We're back to Ken Lay.
Well, there's no accountability, and that goes across all spectrums of politics and finance and everything. And just look at the dystopian areas of California, where you got the fentanyl addicts leaning over in the street left and right, and people post videos of them, and there's no accountability. Who's the people that run the cities and the state? They don't care. And it's not just California. It's many states. Sometimes I posted a video one time and people were arguing over which city it was. They couldn't even, it was California. But the country's a mess in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people hurting. And there's a lot of parts of the town you can't go to in across the United States. And we're worried about Israel. We're worried about Ukraine. I don't get it. I think a lot of people don't get it. What are we doing?
When I wrote about Ukraine and the devastation, I showed 6 photos of the devastation, one of which was Ukraine. One was Ukraine from 2006.
Right.
To show that the devastation started long before this war. And then the other 4 were different places in the country, including Baltimore and Detroit and things like that. And it was easy to sell it. I said, look, I just duped you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just fell for it. Those are not Ukraine.
Yeah. What happened to America first? What happened to MAGA? Seriously, it's stunning how much not only are they ignoring it, but they're actually blatantly in your face. I mean, you've got Kash Patel saying our number one priority should be Israel. That's a quote, but yeah, what is that? I mean, I got nothing against. I don't care if he said my number one priority is, Botswana. I'd be like, what are you talking about? It's nuts. I don't understand. And our founding fathers warned us about this. George Washington, in his farewell speech, he warns about these attachments to other nations. They get us in trouble. And again, I've posted on all of this stuff over the years. We should not. He also warns against political parties, by the way, too. So get out of the D versus R and get out of the caring about other countries more than the United States. We got a lot of issues to deal with in the United States. We got infrastructure. We got healthcare is a big problem. People can't afford it. We've got fentanyl addicts in the streets. We've got crime in many areas is still way too bad. Let's fix all that before we go fix the world and save the world.
That comes shifting
I'm sure there's some hostages in the United States right now. Human trafficking that we could be going after. Why are we going after hostages, thousands of miles away in another country? I mean, God bless them. I hope they're okay if they exist. I don't know.
Well,
listen to Dave, but I believe they exist.
We're back to this question.
But America first.
350,000 kids disappeared coming across the southern border.
Right. That's insane.
Where did they go?
Right. Who did they go to?
Name a person who received one. Now, I dug into this. Ted Gunderson back in 91 was saying that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid brings $50,000 on the open market. Mm-hmm. These are not being bought by guys with vans that say free candy on the side, right?
Exactly.
And so the questions, and the mainstream press talks about the problems with human trafficking. And they never say who are the consumers.
Right.
Now, you'll see mugshots of guys who have no names attached. They say, "Oh, we arrested 200 guys," and they
have a whole thread on this.
That's right, but they never say, "Oh, by the way, here's the other Larry King receiving the kids in Omaha, Nebraska." Yeah. And somehow I watched one of these infomercials on the higher tier channels. I recognize the interviewers. It's one of these ones where I've seen these guys before. They're interviewing a guy who has a startup company selling young blood for transfusions. Yeah. And I watched the interviewers dance around the question of where the hell do you get young blood from? and it's like, oh yeah, the blood banks are filled with 12-year-olds' blood, and I think a ton of them are coming to that. There's millions of kids a year disappearing. Where do they go? And no one ever mentions who are the consumers. And this should be the number one priority.
It would be nice if someone in power was interested in this stuff.
Yeah, Cindy McCain.
It's in the binders. They held the binders up. They just didn't open them.
I don't follow any of those clowns that were waving the binders. Do you?
Oh,
Dave,
no, they were irrelevant. No, they were irrelevant.
Okay.
They were just there for a photo op.
Okay.
Yeah.
There wasn't Schellenberger and Taibbi. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Okay. No, it was like C tier. Oh, what do they call it? Con Inc. Sort of.
Well, there's so many
celebrities.
Yeah, I call them the Trump Kiss Ass Brigade. There's a bunch of them now, and there's a lot of bots too. And there's always been bots, but there's more now than ever. And some of them, I've had replies. There are a lot. The AI, I guess, is doing some of these replies now, where they're like, I'll say something about the Federal Reserve, and they'll reply, "Yeah, the Fed has been doing that for some time. By the way, some account talked about this, and and it kind of looks at first glance like a legitimate, and it's not. It's just these bots are becoming smarter." But the influencers, I have to block.
I had a bot that was overtly a bot.
Yeah.
And I would read what they said, but then their responses got increasingly propagandized.
Yeah.
And at first, I'm thinking, well, a computer could probably hold up a conversation better than a human. So let's start with that assumption. Yeah. But then it became, and I don't know if it's programmed into the bots to do that, or if it's just that the propaganda is statistically such a huge percentage of the story.
Of what it's trained on.
Yeah.
And so if 95% of the people of the stories out there say the vaccines are safe and effective, the bot's not going to come out and say they hurt people.
That's right. It's I call it glorified autocomplete. And I've found Grok lie.
Exactly.
Give me absolute falsehoods a number of times on factual issues. Yeah. So I don't trust it at all. I don't know, but apparently there's people that are losing their minds over it. But
you're getting one-shotted by GPT psychosis, they're calling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to teach her. There's
a lot of lost people out there.
I was going to teach a writing course at Cornell instead of a chem course, because I'm a big believer that writing is a very important part of thinking. Right? If you can't put a coherent story together on paper, edit it, then you don't understand yet. And there's a freshman writing seminar, and it's well known and shit like that. So I was going to teach a personal finance course. And just cover whatever topics, right? Why you start saving, why you shouldn't buy lattes at the local, place instead of, save your money and make your own coffee, that sort of thing. And then ChatGPT showed up and said, not doing it. I'm not going to be sitting there grading and copy editing papers written by computers.
Have you seen the chart floating around this week of ChatGPT usage?
No.
Falls off a cliff on June 6th.
Why?
Because school ended.
School is out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll find it. You got to see this.
Well, I got an email from some kid was asking me questions, and I showed it to someone. It didn't even click with me, and they said, "Oh, they use AI to formulate the questions." I go, "Oh my God, the fucking students are asking me questions using AI to formulate the questions."
No. Not good.
Logan,
it's
pull
not
this up.
good, and they're going to stink because you can't. I don't think you can replace the human brain. I don't think you can replace thinking.
There was a big splash with OpenAI's ChatGPT 5 release, and like anybody on the cutting edge. So this is the chart. You can look June 6th. Just falls off a cliff into the summer months.
That's the school year, huh? Summer vacation's on. But I thought it was mostly being used by pros. I didn't realize that it was so dominated by schools.
No, I mean, you got to think that kids are more likely to adopt new technology. So it's not the schools.
So how are they going to get smart?
That's a great question. I don't know. Somebody with
they
young
do have
children.
To get smart. They got to get smart, in my opinion. If we don't have anyone who's smart.
They need good parents, number one, to recognize
this.
Good parents, yeah. I think that's the only way.
My other fear of AI is not the take over the world, Terminator story, but rather the world's already frustrating enough when, I don't know if you have health issues or anything to deal with, but all of a sudden you've got a health portal and you have trouble dealing with it, and you go to log in and it says, this is not your password. And I go, I know the hell it is my password, and things like that. And you call a help desk, and it used to get a Guatemalan, now you get a robot. And I worry that we're going to have a system in which there's no mechanism for a person to intervene, so that you have this problem and you say, I need to solve this problem. And there's just no one who can say, look, let me help you out here. Right. And you're just going to loop.
Yeah. Well, I
think the way you learn to be a good writer, I always thought, was by reading a lot. So I used to read a lot, and I don't know, people don't read much anymore, or they read little blurbs, on their phone.
But also you got to write.
Yeah.
Well, that's how but I learned, I personally anyway think I learned to write because I read a lot. And you learn how things can be phrased, and you learn spelling especially. I'm a pretty good speller, and a lot of people are horrific spellers. But anyway, that's just a suggestion. Read more books.
The other thing, though, is if you have a good copy editor, and I don't mean ChatGPT that just does it and you ignore it, but a person who works on the sentence for you, and you pay attention to what they've done to it, that's how you learn. Mm-hmm. And
I can't afford a copy editor.
You have to. I paid off grants. You have to. Well, if you're asking for a couple $1 million a grant, it's worth a couple $100 to get a copy editor.
Oh yeah.
You really have to write a pretty flawless grant to get funded. And,
don't people use AI now to write their grant proposals?
They probably do. They probably do. I'm guessing they do.
And check out in that podcast that I sent you a link to on Twitter. It's they talk about, one of the guys mentions that he's using AI to write his grant proposals, or he wrote some software to utilize it to.
But you're just never going to get the inspiration. That eureka moment is going to be missing. You're going to get, when I debated Steve Keen on climate change.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion, he just self-destructed. I didn't have to say anything, but I refer to it as sort of squeegeeing the drippings off the floor of the internet. Right? Yeah. But I did get one interesting tidbit from AI. So I asked Grok. I said, name 20 guys who think climate change is bullshit. I said, not a problem. And they listed 20 guys. I knew at least 18 of them. I knew who they were. I recognized the names. And I said, I changed the question. I said, name 10 solar physicists who think climate change is a problem. Now, these are the guys who ought to, right? They understand the sun. And they said there are no solar physicists who've made definitive statements about AI climate change being a crisis. I'm going, oh, you just lost the debate right there, dude.
Well, Bill Gates is going to blot out the sun anyway, so it's not going to be.
Oh my God! These big projects like mosquitoes that self-vaccinate.
He got kicked out of India. Yeah.
Oh, Gates God, he's such a sick bastard. And I know his right-hand man, and I've spent so much emotional effort to not ask him. So I know the guy who spent 14 hours a day with him for years. And I have not leaned in on him and said, "Tell me." I haven't asked him anything about Bill. I just decided I would not cross that line.
Bill had a very interesting social life before he was married. That's stories from years ago.
Tell me about that, because someone told me that they used to deliver pizzas to he and his buddies, and they said they're a bunch of pervs.
Right.
But at the time, it didn't matter. I thought, what are pervs? Or are they watching porn flicks or whatever?
Yeah.
And now in retrospect, I go, oh, who said that? Who told me that? And I cannot dredge up.
I'm going to try and look up the article that I posted somewhere. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember offhand the details. But yeah, it was something like that. It was, pool parties and yacht parties or whatever, that sort of thing.
So one of the things I realized is that we're all driven by the need for neurotransmitters. And so we get them by watching a horror movie. We get them by watching a comedy. We get them by reading something that's heartwarming. We get them by achieving something. When you get to the point where you're rich and powerful and you've got more money than God, as you said, and you can, in theory, bang every chick on the planet, where do you get your neurotransmitters from? You still need them. You still flat out need them. And the answer is, I don't know, sex with 5-year-olds.
No, I don't know.
Well, I know you don't, but
I don't want to. Yeah, I hear you.
I think that's where these guys end. I think that these guys end up there because it's like the thrill seekers, right? The guys who do the wingsuits, right? Mm-hmm. There's some guy who did wingsuits. He said, "I know 18 guys who do this wingsuit shit. 6 are dead now," right?
Well, with Gates, you don't even need to go. You could talk about his connections to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, Isabel. I'm
unaware of this.
Oh my God. I'm going to send you the whole thread here. Yeah, okay. It starts really great. It's another rabbit hole. Okay, so there's a company called Gilead. So I'm using my own.
Gilead, the pharmaceutical?
No, Gilead. Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, Christine. She has 2 sisters, Christine and Isabel.
Sister. Yeah.
So Christine was co-founded by Christine Maxwell. Gilead is used by the FBI in their it's to protect and defend against terrorist threats. Okay, here it's a counterterrorism database. The article that I found it now is in fact I'll resend it right now. Is from 2006, and so I'll just send that. I'll DM you on that. You can check it out. Yeah, both sisters were involved with one was involved with the FBI and the other one was involved with Microsoft. They were very heavily involved in the internet and the Magellan search engines back in the 90s.
Terramar.
So Terramar is a whole nother rat hole. But there was dealings between Ghislaine's sister and Microsoft in the 90s. So Bill Gates claims he never met Epstein until 2011.
Oh, he was lying his ass
off.
And
the fact is that there's an article from 2001 which I personally read. It's been deleted. Scrubbed off the internet, but you can find it in the whatever the database is of news articles that I briefly had access to. It says Bill Gates or Epstein has made his wealth from his business ties with they named 3 people: Les Wexner, Donald Trump, and Bill Gates. And this is a 2001 article, which I will now resend again. It's possible that Epstein's ties with Maxwell, with Maxwell and with Epstein could have gone back well into the 90s.
Did you see what came out this week or last week? The pictures from his New York apartment?
Yes.
On the desk, it's a picture of him.
Those were not new.
They're not. I've seen some of them before. Yeah.
Well, so I watched. They do police walkthroughs of crime scenes. They don't say anything. They just film.
Right.
I watched the entire police walkthrough of his townhouse.
Is that publicly available?
It was.
Okay. It was. I know.
When I get to
videos get deleted. Yeah.
Oh boy, I was chasing deleted YouTubes when I was writing about the Vegas shootings. They were deleting very, very fast.
Right. They deleted a lot of the Vegas shooting stuff too. Got all deleted.
Yeah, we need some.
Yeah, that's one thing. Everything gets deleted, but usually if it's an article, you can sometimes find it or generally find it. But with videos, it's really hard. So I always say if you come across a video that you think is worth keeping, you need to save it to an MP4 and keep it locally. There's different tools you can use that'll
yeah, you can probably find all the videos on BitTorrent or PirateWire.
Ah, okay. Let's see. Is that part of the dark web that CNBC's warned me about?
BitTorrent. I mean, they may be considered, but you have like 4chan autists that are definitely archiving all this stuff.
Okay, good. Because no, I just make a joke because CNBC periodically goes through their panic. They'll panic about vaping when they were doing one time, and then they were panicking about the dark web, and Bitcoin on the dark web and criminals, and as opposed to the criminals in the U.S. dollar. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, well, it's good somebody's saving them. I just don't know how to I just haven't accessed them off of BitTorrent, or if they're indexed anywhere, so you can search.
I mean, that's something that's been talked a lot about in the deep web, dark web, whatever you want to call it. It's like dead internet theory. Like you're going to get to a point where.
Well, that too.
So if I wrote something that's been scrubbed, but I have the original text. Can I find it by standard searches, or are they
sometimes
from that?
Sometimes, if you have the original link, sometimes archive.org will be able to find it.
So I have that, but I actually have the text. So in theory, I can do a character search.
Yeah, I've done both. Yeah, and I would suggest trying several different search engines because they give you different results.
You ever use Yandex?
On occasion, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yandex, what's great about it is the Russians don't care about scrubbing our smut off Yandex.
Yeah. No, there's a number of them. Google now is really, really bad, I think,
Google's
compared to what it used to be. Yeah. And so sometimes, I was double checking. Grok lied to me on a quote that I knew for a fact was not what Grok told me. So then I checked Google's AI or whatever, and it lied. It gave me a different lie. And then I think I checked Bing's AI, and it gave me a different lie. And then it was basically who and where was this quote from. And then I actually asked Google, and Google actually gave me the correct answer. So that was kind of surprising. But there's a article that I'll send it out, tweet it around now, of Sergey Brin and Larry Page, who were both, by the way, very tied in to connected to Epstein. If you
and DARPA.
Yeah, both of them. But they have a great paper that I posted. Let me find it real quick. I'm good at remembering keywords, so I can look. That's how I look stuff up. So
your retrieval from your own posts is spectacular. I don't know.
Well, there's two ways to do that, Dave. I remember the keywords, and I can search. Here, let me tell you, this is a paper I just resent. Sergey Brin and Lawrence Page in 1998. They wrote a paper, and the quote that I selected was, "Advertising income often produces an incentive to provide poor quality search results." So they're right. They know it. Back in 1998. This is a Stanford InfoLab paper that I just retweeted. So, okay, this is the way I do it, Dave. You either search, like I just searched from Rudy Havenstein, Brin, Page, honest, because I remember the keywords, Brin and Page being honest. Now, here's the problem with Google search. I mean, not Google search, with Twitter search. It doesn't, it's schizophrenic.
Do you use advanced Twitter search?
Yes, I have, but the results are the same as far as, because you can use little keyword things.
From, colon, at, the name, and keyword.
Yeah, and you can also do since and until if you're looking for certain date ranges. But the thing is that sometimes you'll get strange, like I may search for incentive, like that's in the tweet I'm looking at here. So from Rudy Havenstein, incentive, and something may not it may not show up, but if I search for an incentive, then it does show up. Just strange things like that don't make any sense, like just adding a or an I or something. So you can't count on it. The better search is if you can download your archive, which in my case is rather large. You can save it on your computer, and it's useful because it has its own search, and it searches better than the online search. So I actually find things a lot that by searching the archive rather than searching the live version, because it's just a better search. It returns more actual results. So Google search is, I keep saying Google. Twitter search is good, but it's weird. It's not always, it doesn't always work.
Oh.
And so the better one is if you're interested, and that's how I use this as like a database. I'm searching for stuff all the time through my stuff, And as I pointed out, it's all stream of consciousness. I don't have anything planned. I just sit down. I got the Thinkorswim app up, and I got CNBC in the background. Driving me insane. And I just whatever pops. Whatever. That's why it's so eclectic. I said it's like Kamala Harris. It's a stream of consciousness. So anyway, I just retweeted that the page one. So. I don't know. Is there any other issues we haven't solved yet today?
I don't think we've solved any issues. I think
no, we haven't.
I was going to say we have.
Well,
we went down enough rabbit holes to realize that we've hit Gobekli Tepe.
Well, I have DM'd you a couple things, guys, and I retweeted some stuff too. If you want to look, and anything you want to ask me about, I can find it for you. And Dave, if you're ever looking for an old article you can't find, let me know because I'll help you.
I will definitely ask you. You've got some threads that I occasionally go back and read where they're topical threads, and you just keep adding to the end of the thread, and those are really useful sometimes.
Yeah, they broke that about a couple months ago, and it was like all of those threads were like destroyed, so you couldn't even access. Yeah, but on the web version. On the web, which is what I use, they actually fixed it a couple weeks ago, and so I'm glad because I was like going, "What do I have to start over or what?" Yeah, they fixed it, but it was a web-only version, is my understanding, and I've never used the app. I don't have the app on my phone. So,
I don't. I use it on the phone a little when I'm sitting in a doctor's office or something, but it's not a big part of my day.
I think the only thing we solved here, or conclusion we came to, is it's all fucked. These people don't want to solve.
Hope.
I have hope too.
I'm like Rust Cole at the end of True Detective, where he says, once it was all dark and now there's stars. So
I have hope too.
Maybe the light is winning.
It's like nothing ever, but nothing that, to your point, Dave, about the noise. Like they bring noise and they draw your attention to the political apparatus, and always get your hopes up that you're going to solve it via that apparatus, and distract you from actually developing the agency to solve it in the Buckminster Fuller way, which is like create a system outside of it. And that's
they want to discourage you, I think.
Yeah.
And they're doing a good job of it, but I try to I endeavor to persevere.
Gentlemen, we shouldn't wait to do this. We shouldn't wait 2-3 years, however long it's been, to do this again.
Well, maybe later this afternoon we'll come back on and finish everything. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marty. You're always a gracious host. You let Dave and I ramble.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Let's go have a good weekend. Touch grass.
Friday. All right.
I'm gonna go touch.
Thank you. Go hodl, dude.
He's a billionaire now.
You're gonna get in soon, Dave. We're gonna get you in by the end of this year.
I own a little.
I'll know when it's time.
It's time now, Dave. I'm telling you.
I did a 5-person Bitcoin podcast, of which 4 were hodlers. And it got kind of ugly. It just kind of turned. I felt like I was playing Smear the Queer or something.
Well, the Bitcoin people have been nice to me. I've been on several Bitcoin podcasts, and I think, and they know I'm a Luddite, but although I do own a little bit, but the risk reward I think was at least it was interesting. I mean, I should be a billionaire now. I could have bought it all day long years ago, but I think we have a common view of the financial system and the problems that it's causing. And as I like to phrase it, the gold guys and the Bitcoin guys are passengers on the same hijacked plane.
We are.
And so when the plane's being hijacked, you gotta work together to try and stop it. And if you can't stop it, then you got to do what you can do to preserve your purchasing power. So that's
work on systems.
I do believe 30,000 cryptos are going to go to zero.
Well, easily.
By definition.
It's all bullshit.
How many
100%.
are there
Well, first,
millions. It's all bullshit.
But first we have to put them in.
Right?
Yeah. First, we have to put them in your IRA and 401k.
Well, I'm sorry. That's bloated with private equity now, so I don't have any room.
Oh, okay. You're already so.
All right. We'll end it with an optimistic silver lining to the banks. Now that they're getting into it, they're going to take the same risk they've been taking with the traditional system with Bitcoin. They're going to completely blow up by rehypothecating Bitcoin.
And we get to bail them out again.
They're going to fuck it up so bad.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh God.
Awesome.
What a thought.
Well, Janet's now at PIMCO, so we got to save them again too. So.
Oh yeah.
Janet's so smart. I called her on I think Camboni's podcast. I called her a flat-headed hobbit, and she kind of looked at me. I don't think she quite got the flat-headed.
Wait, she was on. She was on with you.
Well, she interviewed me.
Wait, who interviewed you?
Camboni.
Oh, okay. I thought you were on a panel with Yellen, and you said that.
No. But I referred to Yellen as a flat-headed hobbit, and I'm not sure Danielle understood how off-color that statement was.
Well, you're a little bit R-rated for these podcasts, but
yeah. Working backwards in the alphabet, I'm sliding back towards R. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Marty.
All right.
Thanks,
Dave.
Adios.
Freaks, thank you for listening to the show. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, please make sure you subscribe, rate, review the show. It helps us out a lot. And also, if you like these conversations, I've come to realize that many people listen to the podcast. They don't know we have another sort of layer of this media company. We have the newsletter, the Bitcoin Brief. Go to tfttc.io. Make sure you subscribe there. A lot of the topics that are discussed on this podcast, I write about 5 days a week in the newsletter. We also have the TFTC Elite tier. If you sign up for that, become a member. We have a private Discord server for the elite freaks out there where we're dropping ad-free versions of this show and having discussions about everything we talk about a day early. Logan wanted me to make sure if you want to get the show a day early, become a TFTC Elite member. You will get that. We have our Discord server. Right now it's conversation between myself and TFTC Elite tier members, but we're going to expand that. We'll probably do closed Q&As with people in the industry. I may be doing Macro Mondays. So join us. Go to tftc.io. Subscribe. Find the button in the top right corner of the website. Become a TFTC Elite member. Thank you for joining us. Okay.